Ladies and gentlemen, not that I'm going to pat myself on the back and say Viva was right yet again, but I will. This is a clip from Pierre Poilievre on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The conservative movement in Canada is hailing this as an amazing, triumphant podcast. 11 months after losing the election. But one point I didn't highlight in my analysis of this video is this point right here about Canada. Behold.
That's so Canadian.
Yeah. But, you know, the great thing about Canada is we've always sorted our shit out peacefully. Like the Protestants and Catholics tore each other's eyeballs out in Europe for like hundreds of years. And then we came to Canada and just got along. And that's the great thing about Canada is like you can come, you know, Muslims and Jews, Christians, Protestants and Catholics, Hindus and Sikhs. They come to Canada and they just get along. They live on the same streets. Eventually, we all start intermarrying, and it's a great thing about Canada.
That's so Canadian.
Can we understand what Pierre Poilievre just said right there? First of all, I realized I was on the wrong mic. I'm back at my office, and I want to make sure that everything is good here. Let me just make sure that I check back in to the good mic. Go to live. Give me 1 second to make sure that I'm on the good microphone before I continue. I'm on the good microphone. Good. Pierre Poilievre literally just said right there that, I mean, I don't know enough about the history of Catholics and Protestants in Canada. I whether or not it got as bad as the Catholics and Protestants fighting in Ireland, I don't know. Was it always hunky-dory in Canada? I can surmise that it might not have been just all roses and petals and unicorn farts. I know that my wife's grandparents, who were Protestant and Catholic, married, and it was a holy sacrilege at the time. They had difficulty finding someone to marry them, and it was something that was somewhat shunned at the time. Pierre Poilievre goes on Joe Rogan. It's a 2.25 hour boring, reveal nothing, except for the fact that Pierre Poilievre looks like he's a nice guy who has an interest in ultimate fighting. And the same conservatives in Canada that were bitching at me for highlighting the importance of Pierre Poilievre going on Joe Rogan during the election, the ones that were saying, Viva, you don't understand. You've been out of Canada for too long. Nobody listens to Rogan anymore. The same ones who said that to me are now hailing the fact that the podcast has 1.8 million views on YouTube alone as of yesterday. The same conservatives who said, Viva, the liberal media would only use that to beat Pierre Poilievre, metaphorically speaking. It would cost him the election. After the election and after Pierre Poilievre loses, they say, oh, well, it would have been an absolute majority for the Liberals had he gone on with Joe Rogan. Oh, bullcrap. Pierre Poilievre's excuse for which he didn't go on the podcast, bullcrap. Well, we don't leave the country during election cycle. Give me a freaking break. Even if that were the excuse, you did what? One podcast during the election cycle in Canada? Yeah, you did Jordan Peterson. That was before the election. Oh, we don't leave the country to go on Patrick Bet-David, to go on with Theo Von, to go on with Joe Rogan, to reach the masses in a way that would circumvent the legacy media of Canada. No, we don't do that. All right. You didn't do any Canadian podcasts except for that one weak sauce podcast. He comes on Joe Rogan and suggests that Canada is a bastion of everybody, a melting pot where everybody gets along, Muslims and Jews and Christians and Protestants. He didn't mention the Calistanis.
You know, the great thing about Canada is we've always sorted our shit out peacefully. Like
another one of the 5 examples where he says shit during the interview, because he's, he must have gotten the same liberal memo that let's swear now and make it look like we're of the people.
The Protestants and Catholics tore each other's eyeballs out in Europe for like hundreds of years. And then we came to Canada and just got along. And that's the great thing about Canada is like you can come, Muslims and Jews, Christians, Protestants and Catholics.
Protestants and Catholics might be the only one that now coexist peacefully.
Hindus and Sikhs.
Oh, Hindus and Sikhs, Muslims and Jews. I'm sorry if you think I'm railing on Pierre Poilievre. I am, because he deserves it. What about the Muslims and Jews in Canada now? Oh, what's that? Anti-Semitic attacks, shootings of synagogues, fire bombings at basically an all-time high. Times of Israel. Once the best place for Jews, Canada sees rising anti-Semitism even after Gaza ceasefire. When was this one from? This is from November 17, 2025. Attacks continue to force some in the country's 400,000 strong Jewish community to reconsider their future, even as many believe the vast majority of Canadians are good people. You got anti-Semitic crime. Whether or not you want to make people go, oh, that's what happens when a country commits genocide. Whatever, you want to rationalize it, at least we'll agree on the fact. It's on the rise. Oh, what's that? The Sikhs and the Hindus, and they get along? It's like, what country is Pierre Poilievre living in? You see, this is, when was this one from? From March 18. What is Khalistan? Windsor woman's killing puts Indian separatist movement in spotlight. Oh, no, but there's more. There's more. It's all hunky-dory, beautiful. Everyone gets along in Canada. Just bring in endless amounts of foreigners from countries that may or may not share Canadian values. No vetting whatsoever. What was the other one? Oh, yeah, that's right. The Khalistani assassination in Canada. Canada charges 3 Indian nationals for assassination of Sikh separatists. When was this one from? March 3rd, 2024. 3 men have been arrested and charged in Canada for allegedly murdering a prominent Sikh separatist. It's bullcrap. I'll give Pierre credit for some things. He's a historian. It seems to, have a love for history, and I learned some interesting things during that podcast. It's idealism is not a good thing when it comes at the expense of the survival of your country. Gad Saad calls it suicidal empathy. Call it suicidal idealism. Oh, everyone just gets along. You import Indian immigrants, Khalistani immigrants, Nigerian immigrants, Chinese immigrants into Canada. Everyone gets along. It's not like you have any Chinese police stations in Canada that are surveilling Chinese Canadians to extort Chinese families in China, or to extort the Canadian nationals of the Chinese. No, it's not like you have that. You don't have Khalistanis out in British Columbia telling the white European Canadians to go home. This is their land now. You have Khalistani assassinations, anti-Semitic crimes on the rise, and you have Pierre going on Joe Rogan. I mean, trying to put lipstick on a pig. So the podcast sucked. It was uninsightful. He talked about easing tariffs, and he talked about, wish Trump would cut that shit off, talking about Canada 51st state. I was half tempted to show the Borat meme, consent not necessary. But it was other than the fact that it was viewed by millions of people, and people saying, "Oh, look, this is my prime minister." At one point in the interview, Pierre Poilievre said he's the prime minister in waiting. He's not doing it just to have his name on a plaque. What a load of crap! Prime minister in waiting. Keep waiting. It's never going to happen. And B, for all those hailing this podcast, that it reached the masses, it humanized Pierre Poilievre. It did. A year after he lost the election. Oh, and then he doesn't want to criticize Mark Carney on foreign soil. Like I said in my analysis, you didn't criticize Mark Carney on Canadian soil. 3 passport-carrying globalist whore, heavily invested in the transgender ideology. No. He spent his time attacking Donald Trump during the election. Well, Trump threatened to annex Canada. Ha ha! Laugh it off. Shrug it off and go attack your liberal counterpart. You know what they didn't talk about in that podcast? They didn't really talk about transgenderism. They sure as shit didn't talk about the vaccine, the damage that it caused. They didn't talk about the conversion therapy ban that the conservatives, so-called conservatives, supported unanimously. And they didn't really talk about the Ottawa trucker protest. One in passing. But, I got to hear 30 minutes of Pierre Poilievre talk about UFC and TriStar. He didn't know that Faraz Zahabi has the best gym, in one of the best gyms in the world, TriStar in Montreal. I walked into TriStar once. This is where George St. Pierre used to train. TriStar, Faraz Zahabi. I think Zahabi has a brother who also, forget his first name, Adnan Zahabi, who fights in the UFC. It's the best mixed martial arts training gym in Canada, I think, hands down, and I think, top 5 in the world. So we got to hear them talk about that. Oh, yeah, by the way, sorry, I just saw the word secede. Then I knew that he's going to take shit from Albertans because he comes out and says, never is Alberta separating. Never. He did seem personable and gave Rogan a 70-pound kettlebell. Yeah, he is personable. I have no doubt that Pierre Poilievre is a decent father, good husband, nice person, well-versed in history. I am thoroughly convinced that he is the definition of controlled opposition because he squanders every opportunity he has to actually win. And as far as I'm concerned, politically, I will never give Pierre Poilievre the benefit of the doubt ever again. He sat there mum while they slaughtered those ostriches. He sat there, did literally not only nothing to win the election. It seems like he deliberately did everything to lose the election. Now people are saying, well, it wasn't him. It was his chief of staff, whatever you call that, the campaign manager who he's since fired. Oh, you mean like I suggested they do during the election? Anyhow, that's it. The Uni Party looks after their own, says Belle the cat in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. So that's it. And everybody's saying, Viva, you're getting too cynical. I'm not getting cynical, people. The world is just kicking the piss out of me. Try to smile about it. And after a certain point in time, it's good. It's good. Oh, yeah. No, it's good. Yeah. When your criticism is derided at the time, and then it proves to be accurate, and you have to take shit at the time, much like we're taking fecal matter this time around, given what's going on with the current domestic international agenda by America First, Make America Great Again, Trump administration. You can decide who was more accurate in their insights, analysis, and foresights when things come to fruition. And then the problem is they come to fruition, and it's not a question of being right or wrong or being happy that your tweets from the time have aged well. You just wish people would have taken some flipping advice at the time, and maybe you wouldn't be dealing with a Mark J. Carney Canadian government. But the problem is, Canadians seem to love it. At least some do. Others don't. And the ones that don't love the Mark J. Carney have now been told by the Prime Minister in waiting that Alberta will never separate, even if they hold a referendum and vote to leave the country. By the way, I called that too. The federal government will never let a province separate from Canada. At least not following any peaceful means. Now, I don't want to get too cynical, too black-pilled, and I've been told, lighten it up, everybody. And then, what am I going to... Now I got to say, I didn't realize Chuck Norris died. Like, hey, let's go from... Let's have a moment of levity. How do you have a moment of levity? Chuck Norris passed away. By the way, let me see where Barnes is. Let me make sure. I think I gave him the link. Hold up. You got the link, comma, right? Question mark. Going to make sure Barnes' crackling mic is not... Chuck Norris passed away. I was on the road last week on a road trip with my mother-in-law, 3 kids, 2 dogs, and it was great. We went to Central Florida. We met up with Allison Morrow and family. She's got a homestead. It's amazing. I want to buy a big lot of land and I want to live on a farm. That being said, I love where we are in Florida because we're sort of like in the middle of the boondocks and just on the verge of civilization. We had a great week, and I was seeing memes about Chuck Norris, and I didn't realize that he passed away. And I think more than anything and more than anyone, Chuck Norris would want us to take a moment and celebrate a life well lived. We all have to die. It's the inevitability of life. We don't know how we're going to die. We don't know when we're going to die. And the only thing you have control of is how you live your life in the interim before the inevitability. Chuck Norris led a life well lived and leaves a legacy that even Chuck Norris would be proud of.
So I went in and I bent down and I petted him. And all of a sudden, you heard this like that. So the trainer says, get up very slowly and back up. So the tiger did. He slowly got up and backed out. So I went in.
That's one.
And I bent.
That's the Chuck Norris's jokes. I mean, they're beautiful, and they are a thing of beauty. Let's have another good laugh at this montage of Chuck Norris memes before we thank our sponsor for tonight's show.
Norris never uses a stunt double, except during crime scenes. Chuck Norris was bitten by a cobra, and after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died. First, you don't succeed, you're not Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris cuts onions. Onions cry.
Right, that last one was lame. It's a lesser known fact that Chuck Norris used to be a sponsor of the show. I never got to meet Chuck Norris in real life, but I'm told that I might have been almost as tall as Chuck Norris. How tall was Chuck Norris? Oh, no, I was nowhere near as tall as Chuck Norris. My bad. He was 5'10", so Chuck Norris was much taller than me. But not to thank Chuck. I don't do the whole rest in peace thing. I think, this is for family, and everybody dies. You have to live a good life, and Chuck Norris lived a good, long life, and you cannot ask for anything more in life than that. And leaving a legacy that will always continually make people happy and being a living legend, even in death. You can't ask for more than that. To thank the sponsor for tonight's show, however, the sponsor is Rumble Wallet. And by the way, people, you might have seen the conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back. It's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives, pushing stuff they want us to see. We need to fight back. Rumble is the only company that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. On one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship. And on the other, they have introduced something that will give us protection from when big banks try to shut us off. Banks can cancel our accounts and freeze our cards. You wouldn't know that it happens in Canada because, Pierre Poilievre didn't talk about it during that interview. That's why Rumble launched Rumble Wallet, a wallet that no one can cancel and a wallet that allows you to instantly tip creators like myself or others without any middlemen taking the cuts. It's yours to protect your future, to protect your family. You can buy and trade digital assets like Tether Gold, USAT, Tether's US regulated stablecoin in one place. Tether Gold is real gold on a blockchain tethered to the XAUT. It's an amazing thing if you want to invest in the future of gold because it's down a little bit now and it's going to go back up probably. Invest in your own risks and peril, people. It's not only a wallet to buy and save, but it also allows you to support your favorite creators by easily tipping them with the click of a button. Let me show you how it's done, actually, people. Where is our sponsor tab? It's right here. Let's go to Rumble. Oh, look at that. We're on the front page. Oh, look at this. You want to go support the channel. It's done, actually, people. You go tip and you see this scanning thing. You go into crypto. Let's say tip with Bitcoin. And you click this thing and you scan the QR code and you can tip if you have crypto right there. You want to tip with XAUT? Because if anyone's going to do it, I wouldn't mind getting it in gold because tomorrow or next month, it could be 20% more. That tip of $5 will be $6.25 in a month. You can tip it right there. That's how it works. It's amazing, people. Go to wallet.rumble.com or go to the app stores. It's available for Android and Apple iPhone, whatever the heck they call that thing. Now, I'm going to get to, if I miss any super chats or Rumble rants, don't get mad at me. I'm going to do my best. We are live on CommieTube, where I believe CommieTube has now put me in their bad boy algorithm. We are live on Rumble, the free speech platform, and we are live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we have an amazing community that everybody should partake in and come see what's going on there. And I'll get to all of these. We have our after show after the party, after the stream, which is going to be for Rumble Premium and Locals only. And here we go. Let's just see what's going on here. Chris Kraft says, for Barnes was right again, Jar. Thank you very much, Chris Kraft. I hope we get the story on Joe Kent. We're going to talk about it. RJ Spain 56. Scoot 66. Viva, why don't you show PP's reason for not being on the podcast during the election? I covered it. Yeah, he said we don't travel. We don't go out of the country during election. Chris Kraft, $50 again, man. Thank you. Bill Brown, I think we still owe Might another. Lord have mercy. We'll get there. First 10 minutes of JRE was Poilievre, where he was bootlicking Joe with gifts, was top cringe. The martial arts and gym stuff was probably fake too. The guy's a dork. Whatever. Please tell me there are white pills or at least a gray pill. I'll gladly take that. I'm praying constantly, waiting for God's answer. I don't know. We'll see. Barnes, when you're ready, come on in and we're going to get this party started. We got Barry N. McGrowan over on Rumble, who says, wait for it. Is Candace going to say Jews killed? Okay, we'll get that out of there. Robert Barnes, sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
Ooh, I think we resolved the crackling finally. You seem pixelated. We'll wait for the internet to catch up. Sir, what is going on? Well, you got 1776 Law Center behind you, 1776. You got a clock made by one of the awesome members of our locals community. What's new, Robert?
Got the book is from a gift. It's called Grid Square, Volume 1, Stories of Paranormal Military Experiences. A gift from one of our board members, which look cool.
Well, not to try to one-up you, Robert, I got a gift from one of our board members also, and I opened it. I'm not used to reading a physical book, but Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. He's got some amazing insights in life. Robert, what do we have on the menu for tonight? Do we have any white pills? I don't know.
Yeah. We got a white pill in a big black wrapper. quite literally. So we got Joe Kent. We'll have that breakdown. What's the backstory? What's going on there? What's this claim of leaking his investigation and all that nonsense? Another big topic, top topic voted on by the Viva Barnes Law.locals.com board was what's happening with the federal judiciary trying to stage a coup over the Health and Human Services Department, Robert Kennedy, the secretary of, including on the vaccine schedule, including on the ACIP committee, including on trans treatments. Judges continue to get more and more assertive and aggressive in that capacity. We have but the third top topic voted on by the board was the one and only, the great Afro Man has in fact knocked down the rogue local sheriffs who are crying and whining about him making fun of the fact that they did a bogus raid on his house.
It's amazing. I wish I had watched that trial because I saw some of the highlights and they're great. I'm going to try to pull them up when we cover this show. But there's some other stuff. We'll get to it. Robert, let us.
Yeah, we got SCOTUS. We got a big street preacher win, a case we talked about 2 years ago. Got up to SCOTUS, a nice win there. The mail-in ballot case goes. The oral argument is tomorrow before the Supreme Court. Is Election Day, or is it days, weeks, months, etc.? We got a quartet of DOJ action. What's their action? Why is the pro-life community upset about a decision that Pam Bondi made on the abortion pill? We've got DOJ trying to help corporate farmers, and I consider this a white pill. They lost in court in California. We've got DOJ suing Harvard, and we've got speaking of hearings, tomorrow apparently people can tune in. Apparently, very rare, a federal court is making remote accessible the hearing in the HPE antitrust merger case.
I will be live streaming that as it goes live. That's okay.
Then we've got California's got new ideas for how to reinstate racial preferences one more time. It's been struck down multiple times by the Supreme Court. The state of California, the voters of California, repeatedly rejected it, and they're still coming back for more. We've got Jerome Powell, who says he's staying. He ain't going anywhere at the Federal Reserve. And then we've got the range of questions and other topics. We've got Disney. We've got Nextar, another antitrust case. Disney caught making antitrust violations, and a few other smaller cases throughout for the night.
We're gonna spend a lot of time on not a lot. We're gonna cover Joe Kent in detail because this was
I should note the bonus case tonight. A court clerk is suing the chief judge of a local county, outing all the corruption and fraud that the state court judge did in trying to rig an election against the court clerk. You see how things really work behind the scenes.
Robert, Joe Kent, the day I go on spring break, announces his resignation in a post that has now, gone super viral, in which he talks about the fact that it was Israel that has now, in his view, brought America into this war with Iran, that he cannot stay in this administration in good conscience and support the war. I don't think we need to flesh through that post. I did a standalone video and talked about it. He posts that and resigns. Tulsi Gabbard comes out and she, basically answers questions before Senate hearings and says only the president is able to determine what is an immediate threat. And people take that as some sort of confirmation of the accuracy of the imminent threat and some sort of confirmation that Joe Kent lied, where I don't necessarily view it the same way. I view it as Tulsi Gabbard being smart politics and saying, look, ultimately he's the commander-in-chief and he does decide. And I'm not saying whether or not I agree or disagree. We provide the intel. He makes the determination. Joe Kent, after resigning, I don't know that he went on Candace Owens yet, and I forgot to double check that, but he went on Tucker Carlson, which confirms to everybody out there with a below room temperature IQ that he's somehow anti-Semitic, a batshit crazy conspiracy theorist, although he's going on with Mark Levin tomorrow at 8:05. And I will, for the first time, listen to a live show of Mark Levin because I want to see what goes on there. It's not much of a prediction, that when he makes that announcement in the way that he did, and I don't necessarily fully agree with the manner and the rhetoric of the resignation, but I do not doubt the sincerity. You knew that people were going to go after him and try to defame him, smear him, discredit him, which they've done like it's nobody's business. The main smear right now, and people seem to forget about the wrap-up smear as described by Nancy Pelosi, is that he was actually under investigation by the FBI or the DOJ, and he resigned in anticipation of that. And so he sort of just, you can't fire me, I quit, because he knew that he was under investigation for leaking allegedly classified intel, although we don't know what it is, to people. We're not exactly sure who. And the way we know that is because the existence of that investigation, if it does exist, was leaked to the media in order to attenuate or temper the fallout from Joe Kent's resignation. Flesh out if there's anything I left out of this, but do tell us, like, as far as I know, we don't know what the alleged classified information that Joe Kent is purported to have leaked. The investigation itself, if it exists, the FBI and the DOJ leaked it to the media. And what do you make of what's going on with Joe Kent?
So Joe Kent, for those that don't know, he has done 11 combat tours of duty, 6 Bronze Stars, one of America's true original heroes on the battlefield. He lost his wife in Syria to a terrorist attack that she shouldn't have been there for if the military had not disobeyed President Trump's order of withdrawal. She was supposed to be out a month before. It's someone that, witnessed this, went into the work for the CIA, has extensive experience in the Mideast, knows what it is to take on either Iran or its proxies, because he's done so at multiple levels. Dedicated himself to public service, because as he was he was one of those 9/11 guys, that true believer, going to get justice for America, a Army Ranger. Was someone who was considered for the Green Berets. That's the kind of guy he is. An extraordinary military record, extraordinary heroic record, and continued to serve his country honorably in every way he could. Then when he saw President Trump in 2008 denounce the Iraq War, he became a big Trump champion and fan. And he ultimately ran for Congress twice out in Washington in a close district. Pulled an upset in the primary over an existing incumbent, but was not able to get over the final line in terms of winning the general election because it was a very competitive district. And so he continues to support President Trump in 2020 and in 2024, one of Trump's strongest supporters, calling out deep state corruption and the dangers of regime change wars in the Middle East. The volunteers to serve the president as number 2 under Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, but he in particular is number 1 in terms of the National Counterterrorism Center. So he was working hard with the president. When the first Iran strikes took place in the summer, Charlie Kirk, the last time Joe Kent got to see Charlie said, "Whatever you do, keep us out of a regime change war in Iran." And he lobbied aggressively for that. What came about in this last buildup for the current ongoing war with Iran, I guess excursion, special combat operation, whatever fancy language people want to put on it. It's called a war.
Let me interrupt you just for the excursion term. Like I think they've appropriated what was a grammatical mistake where they meant incursion. Hegseth said excursion, and then they sort of made the mistake, the lingo. Do you think they meant excursion from the get-go?
Trump's trying to minimize it and maximize it at the same time. One of the very worrying aspects, 2 months ago when I was up at the White House, or up there with meeting people that work in the White House and in the cabinet and a range of officials at multiple levels of government. The story was, that's now being confirmed in a wide range of places, but also by Joe Kent, that President Trump was kind of keeping his own counsel on some of these big consequential foreign policy questions, that he was not meaningfully engaging with the intelligence reports, not meaningfully engaging with the people on the ground who would know things. And he himself and his administration has now confirmed they cut out Joe Kent from all discussions about this Iranian conflict. So here you have a guy that is deeply loyal to you, that has better understanding than anybody else that he's talking to about what this conflict would look like from both an intelligence and military perspective, and he's not even consulting them. And that's because the Israeli lobby has, as Joe Kent has detailed, cut everybody out. Anybody that has a dissonant voice, anybody that has a realistic voice, is not included in the conversation. The only person who was saying no that was in the room was J.D. Vance. And everybody's been told, don't be critical. Don't say anything Trump might interpret negatively, because his emotional state is frankly not good. There's just no other nice way to put it. I know people want me to spin it and try to make it all sound like there's 8D chess and all this stuff. No, folks, it ain't. You're seeing it in live time. Trump reverses himself often in his own truth post or back-to-back truth post. We don't need the Straits of Hormuz. If you don't do it, we're going to bomb your whole country and put them into the Stone Age. Which is it? I mean, can you make up your mind between Truth Post 1 and Truth Post 2? So Joe Kent's witnessing this in live time. And this, by the way, long defender of Israel, someone whose wife died for one of Israel's wars. Some of he himself risked his own life and his buddy's pals' lives for Israel's wars.
Let me pause you on that one, because that's where people are going to take issue in terms of Iraq being Israel's war. Now, I appreciate...
No, she didn't die in Iraq. She died in Syria.
Oh, sorry.
Israel insisted on overthrowing Assad and was heavily involved in that whole thing, and it's why they were dragged out. Now, but despite all that, in 2020 and 2022, he campaigned with a very pro-Israel inclination. As he himself has now explained, he's been on with Tucker Carlson, been on with Megyn Kelly, been on with the American Conservative, been on with a range of independent publications that are in the war skeptic camp. And what they've all, and what he laid out was, once he was in the job, he got to see in the buildup to the Iran war that the Israel lobby was very successfully putting Trump into a bubble. Now, part of it's Trump's own decision. He's decided to surround himself with a bubble, and his mentality's not in a good place. But putting that aside, he can't realize this is how we make mistakes and go into war. This is a guy who's been literally fought Iranian proxies, for decades. So there's literally no love lost between him and the Iranian government. But what he understood very well is what the realistic aspects of troops on the ground would be in Iran for those troops. Would we be able to achieve the purported objective of regime change to a pro-American regime in a peaceful, democratic Iran, versus how many Americans' lives might be lost in other risks that Americans would face in terms of the economy and other aspects. And he believed it was a high risk, low chance of the reward, high chance of paying the risk and the price. But he was cut out, and Tulsi Gabbard was mostly ignored.
If I may, is the argument that he was cut out because he was leaking intel?
Completely false. In fact, that whisper rumor mill didn't start until after his resignation letter. Mm-hmm. There is no evidence at all that there is even an investigation. There couldn't be. I saw people. I mean, Salty Cracker needs to get back to being a little more salty. Some of these people buying in to what is an obvious smear, defamation, libel campaign is just preposterous.
It's what's insane about it is that I'm following this, and I'm like, what's the evidence that he leaked anything? And there's
zero.
We don't know what he leaked. We don't know what he's alleged to have leaked.
That leaking, of course, is not a crime. So the only thing that would be a crime is if you disclose classified information to people who did not have access to it. There's no evidence of that at all. A guy who has safeguarded classified secrets his whole career suddenly went and did it. Everybody in D.C. knows that Kent isn't a guy who leaks at all. But it's the other people who leak. I mean, the biggest leaker in the White House is Donald Trump himself, by the way. But there's a lot of other leakers around the White House. The guy who leaks the least in the entire national security establishment, this is well known throughout the whole media circles up there, is Joe Kent. Nobody even knew this was coming. Some of us knew from other sources that Kent, Gabbard, and Vance were all considering what they're going to do, is they think Trump is making a disastrous decision for the country, but also one that's going to gift the Democrats the House and the Senate 2026 and the White House in 2028 with big enough margins to pack the Supreme Court, stack the Senate, adding Puerto Rico and D.C., stack the House with granting mass amnesty to illegals. These are all the policy proposals that are afoot and if they have a big enough majority, they can do it. And so he recognizes he has said absolutely nothing negative about the president. He hasn't attacked the president. He's been very gentle and generous. All these people that have been viciously nasty towards him, Senator McConnell coming out accusing him of being anti-Semitic, which is absurd, utterly absurd. The growth of anti-Semitism is coming from the Israel lobby, hiding behind their Jewish identity, as if that is the same thing as being an Israeli, when it's not. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the DOJ's case concerning Harvard. But so there's absolutely, I know a bunch of people up there. He was the guy that, no, he didn't leak to anybody, didn't talk to the press hardly at all, ever. There's no basis whatsoever. That's why they can't even identify what it was that he supposedly leaked. Well, but there's not even a grand jury case, by the way. This is the same thing, which would be illegal if they tried to leak that, by the way. But that would actually be illegal. Because there's no evidence for it whatsoever, no basis for it whatsoever, no substantiation for it whatsoever. He didn't disclose classified information to anybody at all. He kept his own counsel. The only people he talked to are people who also had classified clearances, like the Vice President and DNI Gabbard and Undersecretary of Defense Colby, all of whom have deep, deep skepticism about this war. And he was just willing to go public because he realized when he was on the battlefield in Iraq, and he realized they'd been lied to again, American soldiers' lives being lost for a lie again. He was like, why didn't more Vietnam veterans, there was Daniel Ellsberg, but he was, why didn't more soldiers come out and expose what was going on? Maybe we could have saved some lives. And he realized at that point that if the same thing ever confronted him, he would do the difficult but honorable thing at trying to save lives by going public. What he did was the right and righteous thing because he's a real American hero, unlike your lard-ass Israel first losers like the Mark Levins of the world, or your decrepit Mitch McConnells of the world, or your war whore Lindsey Grahams of the world, or I see a Nazi under my bed Mark Roberts of the world. Amongst real heroes like Joe Kent, what he did was honorable. We should celebrate it. We should respect it. The allegations against him are utterly false. They're utter garbage. And if people keep repeating him, at some point, we'll see him. He's not a legal action kind of guy. But let's just say he'll have plenty of good, high-quality legal defense team fully, completely available to him if it's ever needed or necessary. But this is what they do to every person who dissents. Every whistleblower always gets smeared.
I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to play it again. I didn't realize actually that I hadn't seen this, but Being Libertarian says, remember Pelosi explaining the wrap-up smear? Now take this into consideration when discussing Joe Kent. Listen to this and refresh your memories.
And then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made.
So this is like almost verbatim what they've done to Joe Kent. The one thing, though, I just want to
leaked it as quickly as they did. They needed, and by the way, it wasn't Trump who did this. Trump still is on good terms with Joe Kent. It was other people. It's the Israel lobby that does it, that wants to keep Trump in complete denial about what's happening. And that's why he says things that are verifiably untrue on a daily basis. It's because they keep him in the dark. I call it the mushroom strategy, the intelligence and military-industrial complex has used, dating back to President Eisenhower or President Truman, which is the mushroom strategy is you keep him in the dark and you feed him shit. And Joe Kent realized this was happening, and now we were at risk of a disastrous war on multiple fronts. And came out and did so, I thought, very gentle towards the president, not harsh or critical. Said, look, there's just a foreign nation that has its own priorities. It's fine they have their own priorities. He goes, but we have to have our priorities. And we can't be hijacked by a foreign nation's priorities. And that they're sharing information that's not accurate. And because they have a different agenda. He goes, I respect that. I don't have a problem with Israel. He's not anti-Israeli. He's still not anti-Israel. He just says, when we sacrifice our interests to a foreign nation's, when we ignore George Washington's farewell address that said what will get you into more trouble in overseas conflicts is your allies more so than your adversaries. And that because you will passionately fight for them, their cause, rather than your cause, because you'll get hijacked. And he's saying that's what's happened to the president. And the president's not getting accurate information, and the risk is escalating. And you can reasonably, and Tulsi Gabbard said nothing negative about him. J.D. Vance said nothing negative about him. The only thing Trump said was, well, he says Iran's not that much of a threat, and I think it is. What he said was Iran is not an imminent threat, which, by the way, the Director of National Intelligence, most recent report, said the same thing. Said they were not their nuclear weapons program had been, any effort at it was obliterated in the summer of 2025, and that they had not attempted to reconstitute it at all. So, and that she said she didn't conclude they were a threat at all. She said the president decided on his own that it's an imminent threat. That's her saying that's on Trump. The people tried to construe it a bunch of different ways. If you've ever seen these, compare it to that Ratcliffe who was trying to pretend there was some sort of threat. There isn't a threat. There never was. It was made up by the Israel lobby so that they can have no competitive rivals in the entire Middle East. And Joe Kent's just calling it like it is, but doing so in a diplomatic manner, doing so in an honest manner. And so they will do everything possible to butcher him for two reasons. It won't work to silence him. This is a guy who risked his life. This is a guy who lost his wife, mother of 2 young children, to the Middle Eastern conflicts. This is a guy who's not going to be back down to anybody. He wasn't going to back down on the battlefield. He ain't going to back down in Washington, D.C., bunch of rogue politicians. This is intended to send a message to everybody else. It is being reported throughout people that help out with conscientious objectors and others. There is a record level of objections. I mean, why did the Gerald Ford suddenly have, either it got hit by an Iranian weapon or somebody was deliberately sabotaging that ship on board, demanding it get out of the Middle East. There is record levels of complaints and concerns from active soldiers and active duty members of the military about this conflict, having severe and great doubt about where this is. And what it is the Israel lobby and the military industrial complex doesn't want any more Joe Kents. This is why they went after Julian Assange so hard. This is why they went after Ed Snowden so hard. This is why they went after John Kiriakou so hard, is they're scared of the replication, that other people will act on their conscience and bring forward public information. Because here you have the National Counterterrorism Center, 2 different things being admitted. One, that the president was not even consulting him before deciding it, which he absolutely should have been. And then second, that there was no imminent threat or imminent risk to America's well-interest. And this comes from a deep Trump supporter. So he's hard to discredit. So you just got to throw out a smear. And to watch all these people in the Boomer Con slop is just extraordinary. The Eric Conleys of the world, give me some more Boomer Con slop. I mean, the people wonder how it is that people in the past bought incubator babies for Iraq War I or weapons of mass destruction, Iraq War. Just watch, just go on social media, go anywhere else. You'll see people repeating some of the dumbest, lamest, preposterous claims because they take the bait. Again, Joe Kent is warning us. We better heed his warning because he's one of the great American heroes and ignore all the lies and smears because that's all they are. Lies and smears.
Now, I've talked about, Iraq too, when I was old enough to remember, and to some extent, I mean, I had no social media footprint, so there's probably no evidence of it. Young enough and dumb enough to have bought into some of it when they sold the weapons of mass destruction. And then they get in there and they say, oh, well, we don't, there's no weapons of mass destruction, but they have Scud missiles because they were shooting those at Israel. That violated whatever the international resolution was. So therefore it was justified. It's the same literal moving target now, which is nuclear capabilities, but we've gone into now drones and ballistic missiles where they're saying, oh, they had long range missiles that could hit, Europe, and therefore that justifies the imminent threat. But I do want to bring up this, Robert, because I got to be critical where I think, he might deserve some criticism. It wasn't just the Iraq war. It was here. Third to last paragraph, or fourth to last paragraph, early in the administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. That's not necessarily classified, but I think that's public knowledge, or at least it's it's a statement from public information. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. Pause there. People are going to say that Iran had continually threatened bases. Houthi terrorists that were Iranian funded have been attacking soldiers. So therefore, it is an imminent threat that is continually existing. And therefore, I don't know, the fact that it's a continuous threat that's always existing is sort of antithesis to imminent. It's just constant. But I want to go a little further. It was and we should strike now while the clear. Okay, this was a lie. It is the same tactics the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the life. That's where I think it might be going a little heavy-handed in terms of blaming Israel for all the wars in the Middle East, and it's going to add some fodder to accusations that he has now turned. I won't call it anti-Semitic, but he's been blinded by anti-Israel sentiment, where the Iraq war was one hell of an initiative that the Bushes, would have spearheaded themselves in the absence of Israel.
Except the problem with that is that the plan for the Iraq war was launched by the Israel lobby in the late 1990s by Bibi Netanyahu. And the New American Century, everybody associated with that, pushing Bush towards it, were all affiliated with the Israel lobby, deeply affiliated. The New American Century Project, go back and research their writing in the mid-late 1990s. Bibi Netanyahu was the main witness testifying before Congress in support of the Iraq war. He was the one giving it, and even Sharon Peres ultimately, Ariel Sharon reversed himself and became a big cheerleader of the war on the eve of it. But the Likud party always wanted all the rivals taken out. I mean, they're busy. There's settlers currently raiding Christian villages in the West Bank as we speak. They're busy razing Lebanon to the ground as we speak. They continue to. I mean, Trump himself said that that they launched the attacks on the oil and gas fields without his approval or authorization. So that's what Trump himself said. So unless you think Trump was lying, which is what, by the way, Israel accused him of, its advocates did, then there's no doubt that you talk to people that have followed in great detail that without the Israel lobby, we likely don't go into Iraq. That is a fair conclusion, and it's one that many people have reached. What it is Kent saw a crash course. Why did he reverse course on Israel, on whether it's a reliable ally or not? And again, he's still not that critical. He says, look, they're just looking out for their interests, but we have to look out for ours. And sometimes they don't align. And that's his only point, really. He's not really anti-Israel. Otherwise, he's anti-us being hijacked by the Israel lobby's priorities rather than our own priorities. But if you look at what he's detailing, these have all been greater Israel projects going way back for the Likud version, right? There's been different parties that have had power in Israel at different times. But the Likud, Bibi Netanyahu, was a huge champion and advocate that we went into Iraq. All the people surrounding Bush that wanted to refocus from Afghanistan to Iraq were all deeply embedded within this same infrastructure. And so so he's accurate about that. And then as the imminent threat, I mean, I get it. Iran has totally outrageously located its country near all of our bases that we decided to surround it with. But if we're going to play the proxy game, Iran has literally never initiated, under this Ayatollah regime, has not initiated an attack on any country in the world, unlike, say, the United States, unlike, say, Israel. But but otherwise, if we're going to use the proxy thing that they support the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and Shia militias in Iraq, which, by the way, that only came about because of us going into Iraq, followed us being. If we're going to play the proxy game, how well does that line up? Do we want to look at U.S. and Israeli proxies? Do we want to look at how much terrorism they've done? If we start counting up civilian dead from proxy armies, Iran ain't going to be even in the top 5 on that list. So the idea, how are they a threat, imminent threat to us? Because our military is all around the world trying to occupy the whole world. I mean, I get a kick out of it. Iran's ability to defend itself is now being used to see that's evidence they're an imminent threat because they can defend themselves. It's like, well, where does this logic come from? There just wasn't any evidence that they were, and that was, again, the director of national intelligence, all the intelligence agencies came together, said there was no danger of them having a nuclear weapon that was in any way imminently to be used against the United States. Now, the risk of nuclear weapons is probably going to go up now, which is part of his point. I see these people as like, they somehow think if we bomb them and just keep bombing and that's going to deter nuclear proliferation. It's going to encourage, not only in Iran, but around the world now. Everybody knows if you don't have nukes, we might come and bomb you tomorrow. And maybe we'll bomb your schools and your churches and your electric plants and all the rest. And he's warning, this isn't going to end well for the United States of America. This is putting soldiers at extraordinary risk. the ability. I mean, you have Lindsey Graham out there saying, let's repeat Iwo Jima. 26,000 U.S. casualties for an island that's a lot smaller than the islands he's talking about taking. I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, that's insanity. And so Kent's just pointing out how much American blood and treasure is worth the risk that we're taking here. That's the risk. Is worth a reward that even our latest national intelligence report, what did it conclude? The regime is very unlikely to fall, and in fact is more hardline. What did President Trump himself say? If the regime ended up being more hardline, that would have been a big mistake. Well, guess what? His own intelligence community has concluded the Iranian regime is now and will likely continue to be more hardline than its predecessor. This is what Kent. So people are going to go at Kent. You better be knowledgeable about the subject matter, because this is a man who spent 20 plus years on the battlefield, who understands it intimately well, who was ahead of the National Counterterrorism Center, who was involved heavily with the CIA at understanding the intelligence on the ground for everything related to the Middle East. So, I mean, reality, the Mark Levins of the world can't carry Joe Kent's jockstrap. I mean, they're amateur, pretend, fake video game versions of athletes, when this guy is at the top of his game in terms of understanding this conflict.
I'm not going to play the whole clip. I just want people to understand you're not making the Iwo Jima statement.
It's been obliterated, and they're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Is this going to, though, take Carg Island? Is it going to involve U.S. troops on the ground? Let me just read you something from The Atlantic. Does an assessment on that. They say
I don't know yet. So he goes on to compare it to Iwo Jima, which I listened to the book of the old stock, The Battle for Iwo Jima. Was it? No, it was Pelelu Islands, which it's madness. Kent is out, and as of now, despite all of the rumors that he's under investigation for leaking classified information, we have no confirmation. We don't know of the investigation. It has just been leaked to the media, and we don't know what he's alleged to have leaked or to whom. And that's pretty much the size of it.
It's completely false. They made up the story about there is no investigation. There is no investigation. From the people I talked to, it doesn't exist. There never was. They made up the story about there being an investigation in order to smear him, hoping it would work with the people that love the Boomer Con slop. And if you have any degree of discernment, any degree of awareness of the history of this, any degree of a background in law and understanding the areas involved, you knew that it was, or any background in knowing who Kent was and who was and wasn't a leaker in Washington. Then you knew it was false. But I got confirmation from a range of people. There is no investigation. There isn't. They just made it up. They made it up after the fact. So not only was there no investigation at the time that led him to resign, all the rest, as he said, he's unaware of any investigation of any kind at any time. In fact, from the people I talked to, it was totally made up, that there is no investigation. That's why they're not worried about leaking, because otherwise, if you leaked an actual investigation, that itself might be a crime. But guess what's not a crime? Remember, this is something Schiff did all the time.
Yep.
Schiff loved to leak fake information, and that way nobody could accuse him of leaking classified information because he made it up.
And nobody could contradict it, because to do so would involve leaking actual classified information. Correct. Or actual confidential information.
That's why.
So he got away with lying.
Correct. There is no investigation. It's a pure intimidation effort. It's a pure smear campaign effort, and that's why he's unconcerned about it. But it's meant to discourage and deter a whole bunch of other people who are very concerned at where we're going in this war, who might also resign in protest over where we're going in this war. And it's the reason why they feel this way is because they have been closed off from direct access to the president. And they're worried that these are people that still believe in the president, still full trust in him. I mean, I'll be honest, my trust is shaken. But these are people that still believe in him, still trust him. And they don't want those people to go public because then it might lead to a cascading set of effect that actually wakes Trump up and gets him to reconsider the perilous path that he is on. And again, these are people that are some of the most experienced people in the intelligence and military world that we could have in the United States, and deep Trump supporters. So the goal was smear him quickly so that those people also don't decide to resign.
Well, I hope you're right about the non-existence of any investigation, because I will not let those who were pushing that story without knowing a damn thing forget about the fact that they did that. But something tells me they will not have much of a conscience for it. Robert, let me bring this one up here, because there was I'm not your buddy guy. I know you've been around and you're not of bad faith. Rarely do I go against Barnes, but Joe Kent alluded to the feds or Israel taking out Charlie. I disagree. Official story works, but his BF and others knew. That was not. I heard that. I didn't listen to the full interview.
He didn't say that at all.
That's not what I understood.
He kept repeating, "I have no conclusions. I don't have any of it." He goes, "It was just he knew. If you just looked into Cui Bono, who benefited the most from Charlie Kirk's murder? It's the Israel lobby. That's just dealing with reality." And I've been someone that said from day one it was Tyler Robinson, though I had questions about the Trantifa movement's involvement. And in particular here, they had specific evidence that people knew in advance.
Mm-hmm.
The people tied to Robinson. And he wanted to investigate. There were foreign links connected to this. That's because Antifa is a global terror organization. So he emphasized none of it had to do with Israel itself. It was just, let's make sure we vet through the foreign leads and whether anybody else was involved in this. And he emphasized that he goes, I don't have any conclusions. I don't have any smoking gun evidence. I'm not pointing the finger at Israel. I'm just saying we need to vet whether there were other co-conspirators involved. And the FBI shut it down. The FBI refused to allow any independent investigation by the person responsible for national counterterrorism. Why? Is it because they were nervous? It would lead to maybe big donors connected to the Antifa world. A lot of these Israel lobby first donors that are very late to the Trump party. You dig in, you're going to find they're big donors to illegal immigration groups. That maybe that's why the president's talking about maybe we won't do those mass deportations after all. They're also tied to Antifa-related groups because that's who the Bill Ackmans of the world are. The idea that they have no connection to this, people are very, very naive. Look at all the people funding the campaign against Thomas Massie. They overwhelmingly typically fund Democrats. What tipped people off of the Massie camp that this was the case was when, out of the blue, they started using my confession through projection filter. They said, oh, we think Massie's backed by a bunch of Democratic donors. He's like, that's a complete garbage. I have the biggest grassroots support since Ron Paul amongst old school conservatives. And so we apply the confession through projection filter. Let's take a look at Mr. Gay Rain. It's hard to pronounce his name, so it's just Gay Rain. Think of a bunch of gays raining from the sky. That's this dude's name. That his donor base, overwhelmingly Democrats. So the Joe Kent did an extraordinarily courageous, not a surprise if you understand, 11 combat tours, 6 Bronze Stars. You got a guy that's got Chuck Norris level of courage. And so, RIP to the legend. I got a chance to meet him years ago. Great guy, by the way. Sometimes you meet these celebrities, and let's just say 9 times out of 10, disappointing is the outcome. Not with Chuck Norris. And we helped promote one of his products.
It was Roundhouse. It was called Roundhouse Kick. It was not a supplement. It was sort of like the AG type thing. Greens. It was delicious, and he had a good program. He had a good market. He had a good product. Robert, one other one here over on CommuTube. Here's a better question: why does Israel need nuclear missiles capable of hitting the U.S.? Asks KC98501.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, the other thing Kent is clearly concerned with is when there was did I call it or call it? What did I say in the summer? When at the same time they closed the Epstein files, they said there's nothing to see here in the Butler or Mar-a-Lago assassination attempts. And in fact, I got Dan Ballis Bongino so hard that he started crying and screaming about me on X. And what I said was, is this maybe connected to the Israel lobby? Are they trying to get us into a war with Iran by misleading the president into believing that Iran tried to assassinate him when they had nothing to do with it? As we talked about at the time, all the way back at after the assassination attempt at the convention, I had heard from a range of people that the original plan was for the deep state to kill Trump, blame it on Iran,
and you end up with Nikki
Haley and Mike Pompeo as the president and vice president, and run on, we must go to war with Iran for President Trump. You can tell Joe Kent is concerned that the president is that basically people connected to the Israel lobby are intimidating President Trump. And with the suggestion that, look what happened to Charlie, look what almost happened to you in Butler. Maybe you should play ball, be nice. And he's worried about how much there is a connection between that and deep state activities. And again, the FBI shut that whole thing down. All they're doing is shutting down any case that involves deep state corruption. I mean, look at the January 6th case. They go to great lengths to try to frame a innocent black autistic kid for what clearly somebody that's currently on John Ratcliffe's CIA payroll for it. I mean, at some point, you start drawing connections, and you have to ignore Israel as the elephant in the room, and the Israel lobby as the elephant in the room. And now we're risking the whole world, not only Trump's coalition, not only MAGA, not only Democratic Party control for a half decade, but we're risking, they're mentioning the possibility of using nuclear weapons now. I mean, it's like, whoa, hold on a second. They're just losing their minds. Now, clearly, Bibi is finally alive because he finally showed up for an actual press conference with real people where they're complaining about civilian deaths from Iranian attacks. This is an Israel that's busy trying to kill journalists in Lebanon. This is an Israel that has killed 10 times more civilians in the attack on Iran than Iran has caused to Israelis. They just tried to raise the Gaza to the ground. And then they want to sit there with a straight face. And so, if you were looking at it from outside, didn't have a bone in the fight at all about any of it, you would say, we probably should look into people connected to the Israel lobby and the military-industrial complex for some of this stuff. That's all he was trying to do was follow up on reasonable investigative leads. And the FBI doesn't want anybody looking at the deep state corruption because now they are the deep state.
Robert, we're going to get to a bunch of Rumble rants and locals tips, and then we're going to move on to the other.
We got some fun. We got some white pills. We got some not so white pills.
Yeah, the white pills are very small.
But the ultimate white pill is a big black wrapper.
I forgot. We'll get there. Joe Mascu says, in 20 years, are we going to find out there were never any weapons of mass destruction in Iran? Weapons of mass destruction, sorry. King of Biltong says, try our biltong, more than 50% protein, packed with B vitamins, creatine, iron, zinc, and much more. A perfect snack to your weekly meal prep. BiltongUSA.com. Code Barnes for 10% off. It's South African beef jerky. It's flipping amazing. I suggest the piri piri if you like spice and not too much spice. Joden80 says, Donald Trump had so much promise, but now he is back on track to go down as one of the worst presidents of all time. Global depression, starvation, destruction, death. Republicans will not win for 20 years. We're not there yet. So let's make sure that we can come in with our constructive criticism.
That's why Kent is out there. He's trying to save the president from the bad advice he's received from the Israel lobby.
Randy Edwards says, Chuck Norris was 5.85 according to Celebrity Heights. Consistent with that, my father said after meeting him at the Century Cafe in Downey, Dad was 6. Oh, consistent. Okay, he met him. He was 6. His dad was 6'3". Gorgeous Mayhem 1 says, I voted for Trump. I got some Jew in me and not a fan of Israel. If you are a loser who thinks Joe Kent is anti-Semitic for exposing a retarded war forced by Israel, you are infinitely retarded. Kent 2028. Barnes,
there's not an anti-Semitic bone in the guy's body. We've got to quit. We'll get into this with the Justice Department. But how long have we been saying don't equate Israel with Jews, one way or the other, whether you're for them or against them? It's historically wrong. Zionism and Judaism are two different things. Plenty of Jews disagree with and disapprove of Israel's politics and policies. The part one and part two, doing so, all it does is increase the amount of anti-Semitism in the world. It's a stupid idea.
The ADL has done more to foment anti-Semitic sentiment than they have done to prevent. Barnes, could people use Trump's right to try law to challenge cannabis illegal states? And then wait for it is, okay, I got that one. And then another one just came in. From the Afroman trial, it's now cuck the police. Golden Pager was the turning point of Trump in the support for Israeli wars, says 808 Scotty. 808 Scotty was the guy who sensitized me to when that pager was gifted. I brought up an article. It was February.
That's what Kent is referencing. He's like, at some point, it looks like an intimidation campaign. Put it this way, if it was some other country or some other situation, that's what we would be, that Israel is intimidating and captured the American president. It's a legitimate concern given the kind of risks Trump is willing to run for Bibi's agenda. And it's clearly they want no rival. So they don't want a peaceful democratic Iran. They want Iran to look like Libya and Iraq and Syria. Because
what's amazing is I have discussions with people privately, and I don't disclose things. I have heard this from people on the inside, where privately they say, yeah, Israel does not want a competitor in the Middle East. Period. Like that,
and you can understand that. You're a small nation surrounded by adversaries, so I get it. Kent's point is not, hey, Israel's bad for this. It's that we can't be direct. We can't have our policy be dictated by Israel. We have a different set of interests, a different set of agenda. And when we do, we have to protect ours, and we can't let Israel hijack it to be theirs. That's his point.
Yeah. Please tell me there are white pills. We'll get to them, or at least a gray pill.
A white pill is a big black wrapper.
We're gonna get there. Barnes Jar Susie C. Jazz win Utah 57. Can we get a health check on Mark Mitchell?
They've said. I mean, can you imagine the fake polling? I mean, I'll give CNN credit. They're like, we're gonna one up the North Korean Kim Jong Un, or however you pronounce his name. Like, he gets 99.3%. They're like, no, we'll convince Trump. He's got 100%. And then Trump took the bait. He was going around, I got 100%.
But people don't appreciate this either. The criticism against Putin was that he got 98% of the vote. Saddam Hussein got 99%. And like, when people say, oh, even CNN is forced to admit it, they don't understand the sabotage. It's bullshit. And they get Trump to run with the bullshit to make him think that he's actually winning, when he's,
so a lot of people compounding the mistakes, and then ultimately, now, of course, part of it may be Harry Ensign, the CNN pollster analyst, is saying that because he knows who's about to own CNN, and that's Larry Ellison and the Ellison boy and his son, and they are Israel firsters above everything else. I think if you're looking at it from Kent's position, he's looking at Trump, and he's seeing Israel lobby buying up major media networks, Israel lobby dictating campaigns, potential Israel lobby implications in assassination or assassination attempts, and he thinks that may be motivating the president, and he's concerned that leads to poor decisions and bad information being given to him.
The crackling sound is probably Barnes' mic that has a broken condenser capsule. Robert, you might have to try getting a new mic this week. It probably didn't survive the house move. Schnookums. Even Nick Fuentes ventured on Kent's interviews from 2019 to 2025 when Donald Trump's campaign foreign advisor, and on his own political campaign, all of which were voicing Iran concerns. Now he and others are throwing shade on his resignation, not allowing for what he might have learned in his current position. People need to, I'm going to finish this so that I don't.
Because Nick Fuentes, I get crap.
Hold on, let me finish it.
Boys,
I get yelled at for not finishing not reading the entire thing. His current position. Okay, all this because his very public opinion is contrary to the 70s era take on replacing unfavorable governments. My issue is, first of all, what he said in 2020 about Iran, the situation of Iran, was in 2020. It was before the election. It was also in the absence of not taking the troops out of Iraq. There's a lot more nuance to what he was suggesting back then. But people have to understand, the imminent threat is the threshold. If what you're saying is they've posed constant threats for soldiers in the Middle East for the last 20 years, that's not an imminent threat. And what Trump was saying is an imminent threat justifying this would have had to come in the wake of the obliteration of their nuclear program. And then they had to move that goalpost from nuclear capability to the intentions to go back on with their nuclear developments for the purposes of getting a weapon, for the purposes of threatening the West, which is itself the diametric opposite to imminent threat. That's a prospective threat. And okay, so sorry, I just had to say that. Let me bring up a few more here. Trump wants an echo chamber, not reasonable decision-making process, says Shofar Quo Vadis. Thank you for calling it. Grobert's a good guy. He has his own politics, and he has his own sensitivities. Thank you for calling out Grobert. I love him. And Eric, but he has lost it on every show, has become a Tucker and now Kent Bashfest. Well, he's got his grievances against them. The reason Susie Wiles moved into the White House is so she could block access to Trump 24/7, says Stingray. Interesting theory. Barnes, Hunley is eating up slop. Robert, you just this afternoon reposted a fake AI slop video of the USS Ford with its bow blown off. Obviously fake, but you didn't think twice. I looked through your Twitter last week after the show. A couple of minutes, saw two obviously fake videos you retweeted. I'm open to being convinced by you if you know something that I do not, but you keep posting obvious fake crap. There's no comment. I think everybody gets caught every now and again.
Well, I just put out there, people are misconstruing my retweets. So my retweets are sharing the range of information that's coming in. It's a retweet is not an endorsement. I retweet people who totally disagree with me. So the people who just can't, filter through that exercise discernment accordingly. But there's no dispute Is this person pretending that Gerald Ford didn't have any problems? Are you pretending that? Then why is it no longer next to Iran? Why did we have to take it all the way back to Crete? Who's living in fantasy land, pal? It's all the way back in Crete. And so now, and are you in Trump's fantasy land? Because he thinks all successful attacks are AI, that Iran has had no successful attacks of any kind. No, that's all AI, everybody. Who's buying into the slot, my friend?
Let me bring up a few more before we get into the second subject, that's not what I'm looking for. That's my fact check in real time. Let me go over here to Viva Barnes Law. If you want to understand who is behind the foreign policy of this and prior administration, read Mike Benn's book, Operation Gladio by Paul Williams. It goes beyond the Israeli lobby, says Aunt M. Taking out Iran and removing their death grip on Hormuz is likely in America's interest, but you have to convince the American people. You can't just do it because you don't think you have the votes. Don't burn precious political capital on something nobody wants. Use it for something people appreciate, and they would give it back at the midterms, says Man X Red. I hear my dogs fighting with each other. Dapper Dave 2021. For those who didn't see this on X, Jesus rode in triumph onto Israel next Saturday and raised to life the next Sunday to conquer.
It's on Easter, because according to Bibi Netanyahu, Genghis Khan is a better example to follow than Jesus Christ.
I might have to pull it up to you. Jesus Christ.
He was quoting Will Durant, the historian, but not in the correct context. And he was arguing, look, people are like, hey, you got to be super moral. No, you don't. Genghis Khan won more than Jesus did.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of these kind of statements coming out of Israel, folks. I mean, they've lost the script, several years ago. October 7th made them even crazier than aspects of the U.S. got after 9/11.
Chris Kraft says Las Vegas Barnes has come packed for today's agenda. All right, now we're not yet caught up, but that's good enough. Robert, hold on. What's the title of today's show? Because I know we have the second element in
well, it's the coup attempt against Robert Kennedy, and then in an Afro Man were our other two top topics tonight. But we got this, SCOTUS preacher mail-in ballots. We've got DOJ and a quartet of cases. You name it.
Let's get to someone in the chat said, imagine if Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and who was the third one all resign on the same day. I mean, I don't know what.
Colby. Yeah, the people opposed to the war are Kennedy, Gabbard, Elbridge Colby, and J.D. Vance. Now, there's others too, by the way. There's a bunch of people in the Pentagon that were like, this is going to be a shit show.
I didn't forget the title of today's show. I just forgot what the second half of the title of today's show was. Let's get to the. There's so many things here. Let's get to the RFK coup because it is. I said the silver lining of this administration was what RFK Jr. is doing in terms of trying to make America healthy again, removing certain vaccines from the vaccine schedule. You can still jack yourself up with them, people, if you want them. They're still there, and yet you have now activist courts basically not even undermining, but what's the word I'm looking for? Stopping what RFK Jr. is trying to do in terms of appointing people to the vaccine. What is it? The APIC, the acronym. It's a 4-letter acronym. ACIP, where he's appointed people to the vaccine, program, whatever the decision-making committee, so they can have like reasonable either dissenting voices or the new voice of this current administration to determine what is going to be vaccine immunization schedule policies. The court has now come in and basically said, we're basically undoing the appointments, pausing all of the decisions made by these new members of the ACIP committee, and we're also annulling your order to remove certain vaccines from the vaccine schedule. I mean, so like the sole silver lining, or at least the remaining good element of Trump's coalition, is being hogtied and hand-tied by activist judges who have not yet been impeached. There hasn't been one activist, corrupt federal judge impeached or even threatened with impeachment, which then goes on to have the administration hand-tied. And then they say, well, we can't get anything done because of the activist judges, that we've done nothing to impeach. What's the deal with what RFK is now facing by this judiciary?
Yeah, because I mean, that's an accurate summary. They use the Administrative Procedures Act to say that an advisory committee had to be picked in a different way than it was picked by the person constitutionally charged with deciding who goes on that committee. And then said because they don't like who was on the committee, they were going to disregard any advice that committee had given, and thereby say that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in charge constitutionally and congressionally of deciding the vaccine schedule, can't even decide the vaccine schedule, and is overruling that. I mean, you can read through the opinion. It starts with all these quotes. It's pure activism. It's activism disguised as adjudication. That's all it is.
What you have are basically, it's a tribunal. It's a court that is governing and that is preventing those that were elected from governing. Now, what is the legal consequence of removing some of these vaccines from the vaccine schedule? Do they lose immunity?
But putting them, yes.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of mandates that flow from it. They're like, particularly as it relates to schools. There's a bunch. The big pharma created all these programs to get huge government taxpayer funding for their pharma products that they got mandated. It was a trifecta. You get the product mandated. You have liability removed. You're totally immune if your product causes injury, and the government has to pay for it. I mean, the COVID vaccine was not a one-off. They used as the predicate, as the precedent for what they did with the COVID vaccine is what they did with the kids list and on the vaccine schedule. And what was meant to be a very sort of loose process when it was originally sold in the mid-1980s, the drug company lobby effectively created a system where the government has to pay for their products. Their products are mandated and forced to be used, and they can't be sued when they cause harm. And that's what this is all about. By Kennedy removing a bunch of vaccines that didn't belong on the list, and again, he conformed. By the way, notice the judge made no reference at all to any of the reasons Kennedy cited. Said, I don't find this persuasive, but doesn't say what it is. Why? Because it would be embarrassing on its face. All Kennedy did was conform our vaccine schedule to where it is in most of the Western world. That's all he did. Said we shouldn't have any more vaccines mandated than most of the world puts on their schedule. But because there's so much, this is, by the way, the organizations and the doctors that are bringing suit, what they're not telling people is that there are simply fronts for big pharma. They
get kickbacks, they get bonuses, they get premiums for recommending, for promoting certain things. What's amazing, I forget now who I was listening to. It was on Rogan. They were talking about the fact that when you have immunity, there's no checks and balances within the corporation to make the product safer. Someone in the chat reminded me who was talking about the fact that there's no incentive to make vaccines safer because there's immunity. And in as much as I watched Fight Club with my kid yesterday, it's so freaking good. Although Mark Robert might have ruined it a little bit by making me realize it's about communism. But the calculation, do we do a recall or do we not do the recall based on the cost to compensate the victims? When there's immunity, you don't even do that sinister calculation. You just keep right on jacking up people and having a less healthy population than you've ever had before, despite, taking however many 70 some odd vaccines on the schedule. And so kickbacks, perverse interests, and like Thomas Sowell said, if you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. Something to that effect. It might not have been Sowell.
So it looks like their solution, Kennedy, by the way, was in surgery this week. So but it looks like what they're going to do is reconstitute the ACIP committee. A lot of people were critical of why Kennedy wasn't acting faster. And I said he's trying to cross all his T's and dot all his I's because he knew this was coming. And they were still unsatisfied with it. So what he'll do is he'll cross some more T's, dot some more I's, and come right back and do this again. He'll probably another 6 months before it happens. But he'll come right back and do it. He'll reconstitute the ACIP committee. It's amazing. The judge admitted, okay, this is an advisory committee. But he was second guessing how the advisory committee people were selected. Even though he admitted that they were, he goes, not enough of them. What he really meant to say was, they have to align with my views on big pharma, or they're not really experts. That's what this is what happens when you are run by a bureaucracy. And the judiciary is here to immunize the bureaucracy from meaningful scrutiny and usurp our constitutional republic so that elected officials have as little power as possible and the permanent bureaucracy runs our lives.
I know you've said it a few times. The idea of invoking the Administrative Procedures Act for the government itself something seems crazy here. Who has the interest to invoke the Administrative Procedures Act based on the policies that
it's
RFK
supposed to be a
implemented?
particular person indirectly injured by an agency action that was completely outside of its authority. The idea that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, who's constitutionally and congressionally charged with enforcing the laws concerning vaccine schedules, can't have that authority unless an advisory committee is selected the way a judge wants it selected shows you how nuts the bureaucratic state has become, how utterly out of control the administrative state has become, and its patron and protector are the federal judicial branch of government. And by not disciplining the judicial branch, they are going to encourage, and as Trump political capital diminishes, if this conflict with Iran continues, then without a positive outcome, then this is going to get worse rather than better. And so but anybody who thinks that Kennedy will be deterred from this don't know the man. So he'll come right back. He'll reconstitute ASIP. He'll cross some of these T's and dot some of these I's that the judge claimed to complain about. What the judge assumes is that there aren't a bunch of vaccine experts who are skeptical of vaccines. There are. They have just mostly been relegated from institutional access because the money comes by promoting and pitching the vaccines. But you can see all the ideological idolatry of big pharma, and it's as long as they label their product a vaccine. The COVID vaccine wasn't a vaccine, but they didn't care about that either. And note the contrast. Note how these people all have standing, and they're super strict in reviewing how they went about it. They didn't follow any of the rules in approving the COVID vaccine, but every single judge was like, well, we can't get involved in that. We have to defer to the FDA. We have to defer to the CDC. All of a sudden, it totally reversed. It tells you they're just liars. These judges are liars. They're frauds. They claim and pretend to be making legal decisions that are purely political, where they change their interpretation of the law based on the political outcome they want. And this is the most egregious example of it yet. But it won't deter them. Now, in the same week, we had another loony federal judge decide that those poor trans need those little kids, need those medical experiments, and how outrageous it was for Robert Kennedy to suggest there is no good science that supports it, even though there is no good science that supports it, preventing him from even doing anything on that aspect and mandating that Medicaid reimburse people for trans procedures that are violating kids' basic civil rights.
Trans procedures for minors. What jurisdiction was this out of? I forget now. It was West Coast. Was it? What jurisdiction, Robert, was this?
They're suing exclusively in liberal democratic jurisdictions, and the same judges that were very conscientious and concerned about venue abuse when you were challenging, say, vaccine mandates, suddenly don't have such a concern when it's doing things that fit their idolatry. On one side is big pharma, and on the other side is big medicine's desire to trans children. And what all Robert Kennedy did, which was consistent again with his constitutional and congressional obligations to do, is say in review of the science, there is no established science that supports this is a safe and effective mechanism. This is being trans procedures, medical procedures on kids that can warrant federal reimbursement of those funds. And the judge comes and says, how dare you suggest that? You can't suggest that. This was about, I think it was in New York. This was a New York case because Letitia James was, yipping about it. Or at least she was one of the judges who brought the action. And so they're saying, no, how dare Robert Kennedy do this? He's got to go through 12 more procedures or processes before we'll even consider whether or not his conclusion is. And even when he goes through those in the vaccine schedule, they find an excuse to set it aside. These are judges invading the executive branch to affirm a permanent bureaucratic control of the only consistency between these decisions and the COVID decisions, because there they said you have to have deference to the public health establishment. Now all of a sudden they have no deference to the public health establishment. It was what some of us said at the time. They weren't making sincere legal decisions. They just wanted to promote a particular public health establishment agenda against the rest. And there was an excuse, a pretext, a lie by these federal judges when they denied coverage, when they denied the right to sue to challenge bad COVID rules, and now turn around and grant the ability to force federal and state funding of trans procedures that are ongoing civil rights violations that have no science behind it at all. Because Robert Kennedy pointed out the obvious.
It's genital mutilation on children, period. I don't want to get into the circumcision argument because I will have a lively debate with anybody who wants to argue there. This was just from the article, Epoch Times. Under the declaration, the government had said healthcare professionals who performed breast removal and other procedures on minors would be out of compliance with updated standards. What's absolutely amazing, and from what I understand in this case, Robert, they're relying on basically sworn statements of these medical professionals who say it's more beneficial than it is. It's beneficial, and that some of it is reversible. It's just a pause on puberty. It is just mind-blowing that you can even talk about removing the breasts of a minor for non-medical necessary reasons, or at least they'll say, well, would you rather have a living boy or a dead girl, as though that's the dichotomy. It is against the Hippocratic Oath. They deserve to go to jail for doing this, and yet you still have activist judges, such as the judge in this case was Mustafa Kusabai. But it seems to be. It seems to be.
Can we just have American judges? It'd be nice if we could.
No, he was born. He was born in America. I'll go see what the. But I gotta say, what's amazing is that you have a judge who I don't know if his name is Mustafa.
I'm totally shocked that somebody named Mustafa was turned out to be a commie at heart.
Well, no, but then the argument. I assume he's Muslim. I mean, this is not stuff that would be tolerated in the Muslim community. Some would argue that this is sabotage of American Western children and the next generation of American children, because they sure as shit don't do this in other countries. At least they've gotten wise about it in the UK. Still seems that Canada and America are a little bit behind the curve or ahead of the curve. So more frustration in terms of common sense, what they were elected to do based on activist judges who have not yet been impeached, to the extent this is a federal judge.
Yeah. Now we got a quartet of DOJ cases. We got a couple of SCOTUS cases. We got the third most favored topic on the board, the white pill that comes in a big black wrapper this weekend.
We're going to come to Aftermath.
Some other ones.
Let's just do some of the DOJ, Robert. Talking about Pam Bondi, who was Pfizer's counsel in 2021. You call her pay to play Pam. I just call her corrupt.
Play Pam. She got that nickname in Florida because if you paid the right people, she made your case go away.
Well, what's the case that they're trying to make go away right now, which is the ban on the abortion pill mifepristone, which it's funny. Like I feel like we're sort of living through what they refer to historically as the parties flipping, or the switching of the parties. When it wasn't Democrats who were racist because the parties switched. I feel like we're living through something of a switching of the parties right now, except they still have the same capital R, capital D. The Biden administration had initiated this. I don't want to get confused about this now. Maybe they didn't initiate the banning of the mifepristone.
That happened because of a successful civil suit, because we covered it at the time, where a federal district court recognized that it didn't meet any of the standards for safe and effective from their own review.
For people, just people. Mifepristone is the abortion pill. You order it online. It's sort of like it's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an off label. It's a secondary use of a drug that was never tested for this particular purpose, and it had never been safety, efficacy. I don't know what's safe and efficacious about this, but bottom line, it has horrible potential, deadly side effects. And the case that we covered, I think someone died from ordering it online. I may be fudging up the details a little bit. And it was revealed that basically they've never done any safety profile, never any done safety testing on this. I forget which administration now, but it's certainly Bondi who wants to now intervene to drop the move to prohibit this abortion pill drug until they conduct their proper safety and efficacy. And they want to drop that and say, well, they're doing it now, so let them finalize their results before we decide whether or not to move to ban the abortion pill.
Basically, she wants a drug that has not been found to be safe and effective to stay on the market as an abortion pill while they discover whether or not it might be safe or effective. I mean, a complete betrayal of the pro-life community. And it just shows all she cares about are the donor class. So it's big pharma getting the priority once again. There was some of these judges were biased in some of the Kennedy cases, but it's noteworthy that the Justice Department was the one responsible for defending those decisions and was unsuccessful at doing so. And you have to wonder whether they were really motivated to do it. This is the same Justice Department that's undermining Maha on the glyphosate issue, where they are basically promoting the idea that they should be immune, Bayer and Monsanto, for poisoning people all across America and potentially poisoning our food supply. So, I mean, the people who want to keep fluoride in the water. This is all comes back to the Justice Department. And this is another sabotage. But don't worry, because there is a case they're taking up. The Civil Rights Division. All right, we're going to get a big announcement for the Civil Rights Division. Maybe we're going to take on these big corporations that violated people's religious discrimination rights in the COVID vaccine mandate context, in which they're all over the country because they are not limited by the statute of limitations that individuals are. And they could bring suit against all these big companies through the EEOC to challenge them. Maybe we're going to get an announcement that finally they're going to do something about DEI discrimination. Not only the lecturing and all the rest of the woke nonsense in corporate headquarters, but the discrimination against people based on their race, based on their gender, based on their sexual preference. I have a major case against Red Hat and IBM that's now going to arbitration that they could join as an example of such a case. Stephen Miller was on the case before he went to the White House and saw it as a significant and substantial case. Maybe we would get an announcement that there was going to be something done about all the lawfare by the Civil Rights Division. Maybe we got a big announcement on how election fraud and fornication was being really prosecuted, not just a one-off here and a one-off there, but a major, major announcement. No, we got an announcement that they're suing Harvard. Well, maybe they're suing Harvard over all their foreigners that they give special discounts and preferential treatment to over admissions. Nope. Maybe it's over DEI. Nope. No, it's for Israel. Can you imagine, in the middle of a political controversy over whether or not you're taking the country down the rat hole for a war for Israel, you decide your big civil rights announcement is not going to be lawfare, it's not going to be COVID vaccines, it's not going to be election fornication, it's not going to be deep state fraud, it's not going to be censorship, it's not going to be any of those. It's not going to be for Tina Peters, it's not going to be for Kurt Benchoof, it's not going to be for Amos Miller, it's not going to be for any of those big cases of civil rights violations. It's for Israel, because Harvard was not sufficiently solicitous of its pro-Israel students. And not only that, you go through, I was like, okay, where's the actual anti-Semitism that's being alleged here? It ends up just being anti-Israel. They conflate the two all the way through the suit. They said saying from the river to the sea is not politically protected. Yes, it is. That's always been politically protected. Talking about Israel committing genocide, that's anti-Semitic. The ICC has a case against them pending for genocide. Most of the world thinks what they did to Gaza was genocide. Well, Professor Mearsheimer's laid out the legal argument for that based on, but of all cases, this is your big case. This is what you prioritize at the civil rights. Harmeet Dillon is an embarrassment. She has become a total phony. You know, the moment she blocked you was a sign that she was dishonest, disingenuous, cares more about the donor class than serving the people she promised to represent when she went in there. The Justice Department, the whole department, becoming one big, fat, walking, talking embarrassment. Do something that the voters actually voted for you to do. Don't prioritize poor little Israel having to deal with protest on campus. I mean, these are things, college campus protests they complain about. They've been happening for 90 years.
It is very disconcerting, Robert, that Tina Peters has literally all but been forgotten. Kurt Benchoof, I don't even know that they knew about him in the first place. Dexter Taylor rotting away. The Georgia raid, we've heard nothing about so far. I don't know what's going on with it.
Arizona, John Solomon. Oh yeah, there's big something about to happen in Arizona. Where is it? Why are we getting nothing? Nothing on lawfare. Nothing on the censorship campaigns. Nothing on January 6th. Nothing on the deep state. Nothing on any of these cases. Nothing on the various attacks on people's basic free school board members and parents that were lobbying. Nothing on that. Nothing on any of these things except Israel at Harvard. And some of the things they complained about are so weak, so wussy. They literally complain the students at times played loud music. Are you kidding me? This is a joke. Dillon is a joke, a walking, talking joke at civil rights.
I do, unfortunately and begrudgingly, have to agree that when Harmeet Dillon blocked me instead of answering some very legitimate questions, it showed that they would rather just make jokes and pick on the Kyle Serafins who say things, that are easy to make fun of in terms of like in hostility levels, but not engaged in sincere discourse. So we're told, oh, Trump can't get anything done with the deep state because he can't get judges appointed because of the blue slip process. Oh, Viva's a Canadian podcast. I understand how it works. Keep making excuses. Mike Davis comes out a year later and says the reason why there's been no accountability on the deep state is because of the Epstein distraction. And then I tell you what, Mueller died. Wait long enough, Pam Bondi. Father Time will do your job for you in terms of retribution and justice against people. So they're going after Harvard. Robert, some of the claims, I took some notes down because it was
they equate Zionist with being, you're now anti-Jewish if you're you know who a bunch of those students were at Harvard that are anti-Zionist? They're Jewish.
Liberal Jews. October 19, 2023, there was a march through campus with building invasions and disruptive chants. Jewish students hid in fear, no police intervention. October 30, there was an occupation of the Casperson Student Center targeting Jewish students, no action taken. University Hall occupation. Harvard provided food to protesters instead of removing them.
This is the same Trump administration that has already been found to have been violating people's free speech rights by abusing immigration laws to target people based on their speech against Israel. So, I mean, it's total. All they care about. That's what it's just the donor class. Like you make sure that in Florida State that student that got in an argument in a locker room, make sure they're kicked out for Israel. It's Harmeet Dillon's of Israel, for Israel, by Israel. What about America? Could we care about America for a little while? Could we enforce the civil rights for Americans for a little while? In this dimwit insurrection Barbie, I'm not sure it's a bot account or a real account or what it is. It's like, oh no, mister, they're doing a lot on vaccine mandates. She cites one case they took against one school system. There are tens of thousands of cases against big corporations for which we should have accountability. Not to mention the lawfare of the Tina Peters and everybody else. I mean, this is a joke. I defended Harmeet Dillon, protected her in many respects. No mas. She's a fraud, a fake, and a phony, and a damnable disgrace to the populist cause.
But Robert, on December 10th, 2023, there was a study-in at the Widener Library blocking access with, quote, no normalcy during genocide signs. Administration refused to intervene. The only one I say legitimate complaint
was one assault case.
Assault, and the guy got a.
But it's like,
I say alleged. But he got a grant.
Loud music. Those poor little Israeli students. They couldn't handle the loud music.
But I tell you, it's not. I'm sure it's not pleasant. And I saw the
Welcome
same.
to Harvard.
Well, no, but we'll go to McGill, or go to Concordia, go to Montreal, and not to say.
Let's be blunt. It's not like Jews are underrepresented in the Ivy League, right?
I wouldn't know.
There's people that are being discriminated against and excluded from the Ivy League, and it isn't Jews.
Robert, I'll tell you one thing.
A century ago, but not now.
I went to Université Laval. There were 6 of a law student association, a law body. What am I talking about? Law freaking program. There were like 1,000 students. There were 6, demonstrably Jewish students, and I think a dozen overall. That's underrepresentation.
I'm not going to ask you how you determine they're demonstrably Jewish. Well, maybe it's the Chevy Chase line where he's like, "I'm Dr. Reuben."
Well, that would be one way to say yes. That being said, Robert, I was elected the president of the Law Student Association.
There you go.
Was in 2004. I don't know, 2000.
Why do they keep equating Zionism with Judaism? All they're doing is increasing anti-Semitism. The two are very different. The Orthodox rabbis that are fiercely anti-Zionist. Many Jewish on the left that are very anti-Zionist. Many of the people that have the biggest criticisms of Israel, Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Dave Smith, are the quit equating a religion or ethnicity with Israel's politics. I mean, it's two different things. And it's unbelievable we're taking all the time of our Civil Rights Division for this.
Where was it? Tina Peters. I just saw a chat. It said Tina Peters will be free 12 months from now, 9 months maybe.
Only if the court reverses. I hope they do. But it's frustration. I mean, it's atrocious. It is atrocious, and to get yelled at and lectured and be called a doom pillar and a black pillar. Harmeet Dillon, she did good work for a while, I guess, and now it's turned into a walking joke. Pam Bondi is a walking joke. The DOJ.
What have they done? I mean, what have they done?
Let's talk about two more cases.
Yeah,
the other case that they were really, so we were, food freedom was a big issue. Amish record level turnout and voter participation. You don't have to believe me. You can read the farmer publications that hate me and hate the Amish and hate Amos Miller. They admitted after the election, the Amos Miller case helped rally the Amish, and they had such record level voter participation that Trump was guaranteed to win Pennsylvania and thus guarantee the election just based on them. And while Bobby Kennedy is doing good work in that regard, Brooke Rollins is doing good work on that regard, what is the Justice Department doing? They're suing the state of California because they want to make sure that with the big corporate farms that like to stick all the birds in tiny little cages, get to stick them in all the tiny little cages. And so they sued. No farmer actually sued. It was just the feds who sued.
Oh, hold on. Flesh this out. Don't presume everybody understands this. So California passed a law that was basically a free-range chicken law. It restricted confined spaces for chickens, over reproduction. Basically, forget the humane perspective to it. You get healthier chickens when they're not kept up in these coops.
Healthier food. I mean, what happens? You stick them in a little cage and they eat their own crap.
No, but that's like when I'm reading it, Robert, I couldn't understand who's doing what and for what reason. Not that I agree with much that comes out of California. I couldn't even steelman what the downfall to the argument would be. They're arguing higher chicken prices, higher egg prices because of what goes into requiring them to do this. Flip side, slaughtering a bunch of chickens for the avian flu is what jacks up egg prices, not necessarily making sure you don't mass produce and abuse and treat these animals like rats or vermin.
And healthier food can cost a little more, but basically, your small farmer, your organic farmer, your regenerative farmer, your Amish farmer doesn't have a bunch of little chickens and hens in tiny little cages to eat their own crap. They see that as foreign to the way you make good food and just abhorrent. And it's the big corporations. It's the Tyson Foods of the world that do this.
And so this piece of California legislation did nothing to prejudice small farmers. Arguably,
it hurt big corporate farms. That's what it did.
And so the DOJ comes in and wants to challenge this law because it's going to make the price of eggs go up. And that's the only argument I can see for why they wanted to invalidate this law, arguing that it interfered with federal.
They were acting as the benefit, as the personal conciliary to big corporate, big ag. That's what they were doing, because Justice Department is bought and paid for top to bottom now by big corporations. And it's another example of this. But the white pill is the judge said, you don't have standing to sue. If a farmer wants to sue, they can sue. But you don't, because they're claiming, our federal law preempts it. He's like, actually, the federal law doesn't even deal with this, by the way. So he's like, no, it's not clear to me at all that the federal law preempts it. But even if it does, the person that's got to sue is the actual farmer and expose who's really bringing the action. The Tyson Foods of the world who don't want to be seen doing what they're doing. So instead, they let the government run interference for them. Fortunately, the Justice Department lost in this case, but it's an embarrassment as to just how bad the Justice Department is AWOL, what people elected them to do. Last but not least,
wait, don't get to the last one yet. I just want to bring this one up. Part of voting for president is trusting his or her instincts and judgment of the person you voted for when new situations arise. If not, do you really even trust your own vote? Let me just say that I trust Trump to listen to us when we tell him he's making a bad decision. Bill Barr, Anthony Fauci, lockdown policy for a bit. He'll reverse course. A blind trust is not faith in a human. It's basically godly type cult worship. And that's not what anyone should have in authority.
And that's why I don't share that belief. I understand people who have that. And if you want to defer them, that's fine. But all of us don't have to do so. And how did seal clapping during his, hey, let's let Fauci and Deborah Birx dictate our COVID policy work out for him?
Not good.
Yeah. So now, last but not least, the one that will have a Zoom hearing on Monday, Wall Street Journal, big expose. There are different people like, I got a lot of, hey, you were right, Barnes, emails. You don't have to be on the Chris Kraft, Barnes was right tip jar. There were a bunch of folks that were messaging me saying, holy crap, you underestimated how corrupt, corporate whore, unregistered, criminal felony lobbyist Mike Davis really is. The Wall Street Journal detailed how outrageous his conduct has been. Because it's coming in the HP case. Mm-hmm. It's coming soon in the Live Nation case. It's coming after that in the Paramount Plus case. It's coming in the Warner Brothers. It's coming after that in a range of other cases. We'll talk about Nexstar. We'll talk about Disney. These are two cases that our Justice Department should be prosecuting, but are not because of, I suspect, the Mike Davises of the world. So they're going to hold a hearing on Monday where they're going to detail whether or not the HP Juniper merger should go through or be set aside for extraordinary misconduct and how it was handled. It details how Stanley Woodward, number 3 at the Justice Department, totally corrupt. Number 2, Todd Blanche Dubois, totally corrupt. Pay for play Pam Bondi, totally corrupt. They sold out the antitrust agenda that MAGA wanted because we're for free enterprise. We're for small enterprise, not for big corporations getting to monopolize the marketplace to drive up costs and reduce the quality of services. And so they're going to be holding a hearing. But people who, Barnes, we're talking about, and I still get the Mike Davis seal clappers that, will attack me. They make up even more crazier claims. It's like, I get, what Joe Kent's going through. It's like it goes to this level, this level, this level. Well, just read this Wall Street Journal article, no less, that details the scope and scale of how Mike Davis has corrupted the Justice Department. But you might hear all about it on Monday in that hearing that apparently members of the public can tune in for on Zoom.
I've asked our locals community for the Zoom link because I'm absolutely going to tune in, and if I can broadcast that. But
Double check the federal rules. Sometimes that's real. They don't allow rebroadcasting under criminal penalty.
I'm not flirting with any laws while I'm here on a visa. But Robert, the people are going to say, well, now you're trusting the Wall Street Journal, where you refer to them as mainstream, legacy media.
Oh, it's Murdoch. But that's my point. These are people that are in the pocket of big corporations, and this is so egregious, so extraordinary that even they're like, holy crap. And they're just one of the publications covering it. Everything that I told you about Mike Davis has been confirmed now under penalty of perjury and under oath. And you're going to be hearing about it.
Just so people understand this, Hewlett-Packard merging with Jupiter. This I think it had to do with like internet or WLAN ability. They were competitors. Their being competitors were the only thing, on the one hand, driving innovation between the two companies and maintaining some normalcy of pricing because they were competing with one another. The merger was so shocking. I think it was the judge in this, who was it in this that said it was a antitrust on its face, like prima facie antitrust, and somehow gets authorization for this merger. And the allegations detailed in Wall Street Journal is that Mike Davis is representing his clients. I don't know if it's $1 million a pop, whatever. What good are all the riches of this earth for he who has forsaken his soul? But is getting paid to lobby the DOJ to approve in some cases and to intervene in others to put an end to, for example, the Live Nation Ticketmaster antitrust lawsuit. It might have been in that one where they were saying this settlement makes so little sense given the prima facie case for antitrust violation. But we're going to learn that Mike Davis is intimately involved. It's been detailed in the Wall Street Journal. I've showed it a couple of times. And what's the hearing about tomorrow in terms of...
it's about whether or not the judge should vacate the merger, an extraordinary and very rarely issued remedy because of the scale of corruptibility that took place here. And you have him threatening over-the-top threats. I'll destroy you. I'll ruin you. I'll do this. Arthur Schwartz was not even properly disclosed by HPE in their Tunney Act filing. These are crimes being committed by Arthur Schwartz, by HPE, by Mike Davis, by others affiliated and associated with him. And this is just one example of many that the Trump administration runs real risk, substantial risk that this part blows up in so many different ways that it becomes a linchpin in a potential impeachment campaign against them. This is something they should have fixed. We said if they kept Gail Slater in, this could have... And now he was bragging about threatening Gail Slater all the way through the process.
He was on Twitter relishing in her employment demise. I'm like, you're better off just staying silent. Like, you don't have to demonstrate your malice and demonstrate your potential involvement in getting her booted. He's not a part of the administration, Robert, right? He's on the outs. He's just apparently making bank.
He's an unregistered lobbyist, misusing and abusing his access to certain key people. I get it. Apparently the Trump brothers are just planning on getting fabulously rich through the administration too. Came out this week, invested in some business that then got a huge government contract and endorsement that made their investment worth 10x overnight. I mean, this is so blatant. Maybe I think they just learned the wrong lesson, but it was like, hey, we're just going to go in and grab everything we can in this Trump term. This looks terrible for the administration.
And arguably what Mike Davis has done is a violation of the Tunney Act, antitrust procedures, requires federal court review.
And of course, he's an unregistered lobbyist. He's clearly all the detail here. There's no dispute. You read through that Wall Street Journal piece. There's no doubt. And you read the sworn, and the Wall Street Journal piece was just taking what the court filings were based on the sworn testimony, and it detailed how egregious it was. And again, this comes from antitrust whistleblowers like Roger Olson and others who were very pro-Trump. Yeah, the threats and bare-knuckle tactics of the fixer, Mike Davis. I mean, think about that. I mean, what a disgrace to the administration that they even let this guy anywhere near them. And anybody who stays close to him, certain people and certain staffs of certain vice presidents should be paying attention, are at criminal risk themselves for staying involved with these bums. Get rid of them fast, get rid of them quick, reverse course fast, or this is going to get a lot uglier before it gets better.
All right, well, I think it's about time maybe for getting into the white pills. But before we do that, everybody who's watching on the landing page of Rumble, click on the link, get in there, hit subscribe, hit whatever these things are, the thumbs up button. If you want to support,
that's a funny look. Someone grab that still photo.
Yeah, I look
definitely
old.
memeable.
Yeah, you look just dismayed, and I look like I'm melting with time. Look at these wrinkles, Robert. I look at these wrinkles. I got a grimace wrinkle. These are the wrinkles of cynicism because I'm getting cynical. If you want to support the channel, well, support the sponsor. You can tip. I'll give everybody the link if you want to send.
Rumble Wallet. I used it, and it's really easy to use. Really, cool. To put money in. Really easy to get money out. Now, always be careful when you transfer money out that you're using the right chain. So if it's blockchain or Ethereum or one of the others, and it's the right stable coin to where you're sending it to, because otherwise the money will disappear and vanish. The Rumble Wallet, real easy to use.
It's innovation of the highest order. I was going to send, so everybody, where you can send, if you want to send baseball cards, send unopened boxes of baseball cards to my PO box, which is, where is it here? The PO box 20423 State Road 7. Whatever, just copy that. Send baseball cards, people. I'll open them and we'll talk. Okay.
How did your UFC picks go for Saturday?
9 of 13. I forget how many there were. 9 of 12 or 9 of 13. Oh, the winner in our locals community. I took a screenshot. Who was it? I'll get the winner of our locals community. You're going to get a free shirt. I'm going to email you so I can. It did pretty good. I mean, some of these fighters, I didn't know some of these fighters, so I had to do some homework. Robert. Oh yeah, that's right. Before we get to the white pill.
A couple of SCOTUS, one white pill, one potential white pill, and we've got the white pill, in a nice big black wrapper.
Does everybody remember who what's his name?
Afro Man.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get there in a second. Pihans says, so is it okay for a state to tell you how to farm when you don't like the farmer's method? How is this different from the state going after the Amish? Let the market decide. Robert, my definition of Zionism, this is from Antam, is, quote, the support of the nation of Israel, not the policies of the government. I don't understand how you define the term. The term doesn't have a definition. It just gets, the term itself has become the slur, and there's no room for defining the term right now. But Zionism means, as far as I understood, it was the return of Jews in diaspora to the state of Israel and the supporting of the state of Israel. That's how I always understood it. But will Islam be more accepting now that Iran is led by the... I'm not kidding. Alien baby, thank you. I'm not reading that one on purpose. DOJ is going after pistol braces again as well, says Sting.
Yes, Second Amendment harassment happens continuously.
Cliff Norman says brain does not fully develop until age 25. Judgment is the last function to develop according to a neurological science. This is malpractice. Oh,
absolutely.
Robert,
what they're doing to these kids, these gender... And Robert Kennedy didn't even start out as a skeptic of this. It was after he reviewed the science and realized there was no good science behind it that he made the position that he did to try to protect kids. And now courts are demanding that these experiments continue.
Speaking of the brain not being fully developed, Robert, I'll share an anecdote. It's not my child, but I'm going to share you something after the show that you'll understand. The brain is not developed, and boys are even less developed than girls. Chris Kraft. Okay, did I get that? Oh, hey, boss. You have no idea how great it looks to see your name in the chat. We love you, says Chris Kraft. Thank you very much. F. Charton says, I keep saying this. It's frustrating. Iran already had nukes. North Korea has them. Or they chose to not have them, period. I suspect they did not. But smart people in Iran had them close to some assembly required. Now they are assembling really. Yeah, or they're just going to get them from North Korea. Why wouldn't North Korea?
Or Pakistan, right across the border.
Kiki Blue says, why is Joe Kent, who is America First, going on Candace and Mark Levin? He did 5 minutes on Candace. I had to look it up. He's
talking to tons of people. So his big interviews were with Tucker Carlson, the American Conservative, and Megyn Kelly. Those were really thorough, comprehensive, well done. The American Conservative, founded to be anti-war but from the conservative tradition. I mean, people forget, it was Democrats who kept getting us into wars, not Republicans. Woodrow Wilson got us into war. Republicans kept us out. Well, FDR got us into war. Then Harry Truman got us into war. Eisenhower kept us out. JFK kept us out, but then LBJ got us in. Nixon got us out of Vietnam. You could argue belatedly, but still did, and got détente with Russia and all the rest. Carter didn't get us involved in a war, to his credit. But Ronald Reagan kept us out, and then Poppy Bush. Now, everybody says the end of the Cold War wants to get involved in a war. His first term was the first time in a long time that we had not got involved in a new war. So I wish you would have stuck with that.
And by the way, I've reached out to Joe. Joe was on the show. I mean, I presume he's being bombarded, and he obviously has an open invitation here. Where am I here? I got to bring this back up. Chance of a turnaround soon on ending this Iran endeavor. If you say something pessimistic, I'm going to shit myself. Robert, I'm optimistic that it's going to turn.
Remember, Jonathan, stay positive.
Well, I said, Robert, I said it out loud.
He lost it a little bit this weekend. You just got to you trick your mind into staying positive. So maybe the best outcome of this is we'll be permanently out of the Middle East when it's all said and done. That may happen. May happen because we lost, but if we're out, hey, good.
I said I'm not optimistic, but I'm also getting a little doom pilled. If this war with Iran is about stopping nuclear weapons, why does Israel need to invade Lebanon? Don't ask questions, Gray. Chris Kraft, Las Vegas. Okay, good. I got them. Now, before we get into the white pill, Robert, we're going to do it. But hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right. We're going to do.
You got one of the songs? You got one of the.
No, we're going to get copy claimed if I do that. Yeah, I was so blown that Trump believed that 100% BS. So we're just cooked for the mids. Nothing we can. Now CK Dolores. Nothing we can do at all.
Can mitigate. Can he reverse course, or can he correct course enough to save the midterms? That's going to be hard. But he can keep the numbers down, and the numbers matter. No, but it's a big difference between 51 Democratic senators and 55. Big difference between 220 Democrats in the House and 240. That's the difference between a nightmare and a difficulty, but manageable.
No, but I love that we were told last, I want to say July 2025, we are negative for even suggesting the midterms are at risk, and now it's the party in power always loses the midterms, like idiots who think that we don't have an X diary of this. I was blown away. Okay, hold on one second. I just wanted to do this one. That was from CK Dolores. I'm burying myself in my backyard. James Yoder 11 from the Afro-Man trial. It's now Cuck the Police. That is the segue that I was wanting to get into Afro-Man, Robert. Afro-Man is the famous guy who sang the song Because I Got High. But then I got high. And so he gets raided. It's so
I wonder if that's a favorite song of Bill Brown in the chat. Maybe he'll let us know.
Bill, I bet you Bill has that tattooed somewhere. Bill Brown, for those who don't know, in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community, proud consumer of medical.
Well, he married a Jew named Anna.
Did he? I didn't know that.
No, you get it?
Oh, married a Jew. Okay. See, Robert, I don't get jokes in real time.
That's my one dad joke of the day.
Maddie Juana. So Afro-Man gets raided by the cops based on a confidential human source, or whatever they call them.
Rats.
A rat.
Useless rats.
A rat who says there's a kidnapping, some sort of a hostage situation in Afro-Man's basement. The cops come, they kick down his fence, they bust into his place, they go through his stuff, they seize cash that he had in the house, something like $5,000 that he had.
See that yummy lemon pound cake.
They see some lemon pound cake that his mother made. Hold on, I do have some of the videos here. They see a lemon pound cake that the cop, here we go, this right here. The cop comes into his house, looks over adoringly.
Mama's lemon pound cake.
And I don't want to get copy claimed. We're live on CommieTube. So the cops come in, seize some of his money, bust down his gate, determine that it was a bullshit rat out from some, I don't know who the rat was, and no charges filed, no nothing. They leave. Eventually, he gets his money back, the cash, but there apparently is $400 missing. Afroman is still making music. His music is not sophisticated chord structure. It sounds sort of like that when you had a synthesizer from when we were kids and it used to play like sort of that music, wedding type stuff. But the lyrics are hilarious. After everything has worked itself out,
and a great voice. I love his voice.
He's got to be. I'll see if I can play something maybe for 5 seconds without getting claimed. After all this happens, the municipality, the county, the sheriffs, whatever, they refuse to fix his gate. He challenged the actions, but basically they said, look, it's within the realm of what's acceptable because we were acting even wrong, even acting on bad information. We were sincerely acting on the information of a rat who got everything wrong, and we're not compensating you for the damage. We're not accounting for the $400 that's missing from the $5,000 we seized. When he went to pick up the cash, he had media with him, which sort of irked the cops because they thought it was a setup. And he's like, I had no idea I wasn't getting all of my money back, allegedly, that you guys stole. He then goes out and starts making music, as he does, about the incident. And he makes humorous takes about Pound Cake Cop who goes on. It became a meme where everybody knew that they called this guy, lard ass, whatever, Pound Cake, Mr. Pound Cake. He made rap music allegedly about fornicating with one of the wives of one of the officers and allegedly defaming her. He makes,
and he suggested that one woman might be a man, just from the look.
Let me see if I have that one.
Police officers.
I hold on. I believe that one is somewhere over. It was funny where they said the woman was reacting to this one right here, I think, where she's crying, listening to what's up?
Listening to his rap song, making fun of her.
Oh, hold on. The last time I didn't allow the child to interrupt, I missed the delivery of a package. Come, say hi.
So in someone's trash, I found a PS2.
He found a PS2 in someone's trash. Keep it, and I'll look at it after show. That was not worthy of an interruption. Get out. All right, so.
TV doesn't have like the lead in.
All right, so the last time he came in, I didn't allow him to. I just sort of shoot him, and then he left, and then I missed a FedEx package of some baseball cards. So the woman is crying while they're playing the diss track about her, and then we go over to Afroman, who is vibing. So he makes these diss tracks. He makes music for his listeners, for his audience.
He has a great all-American suit, American tie, American sunglasses. Afro-Man is a real American.
The police sue him for defamation, false light, a bunch of other charges, which ultimately got dismissed, but he went to trial on the false light and the defamation. Afroman counterclaimed and said this is classic anti-SLAPP, or this is a strategic lawsuit against public participation, which it is like personified, but his counterclaim gets dismissed. And he goes to trial over the two charges, false light, defamation, where they say, you didn't actually have sexual relations with the man's wife. And the cop is like, I don't know if he did. Like, what? And then where they're talking about Pound Cake Cop, who's getting made fun of and mocked and whatever. It's like, well, the lawyer is like, look, both of us are kind of on the same weight train. Neither of us are thin. He's like, well, I wouldn't say I'm thin. So the bottom line is they sued Afroman for the defamation from his humorous music that was needling the people.
Music.
Yeah, who needling the people who broke his stuff, stole his money, raided his house on bullcrap, and he goes to trial. And I didn't watch the trial, and there's not enough time in the day, but I saw the highlights now, and it was glorious. And he ends up winning, where the lawsuit is dismissed. Except he's not going to recoup legal fees.
The jury finds completely for Afroman that these cops I've been so psychologically scarred by this rap song comparing me to a pound cake. I've been so psychologically scarred by people thinking that I'm really a man when I'm a woman. I'm so psychologically scarred by everybody thinking that Afroman paying my wife. People were watching this trial and they couldn't stop laughing. They're like, this is some of the dumbest, ridiculous, these abusive cops misuse their authority to raid somebody's house, steal a bunch of stuff, break a bunch of stuff. and they get away with doing that. And so he gets his ultimate revenge with pure satire, beautiful, brilliant, masterful satire, and they sue him over it. And they deserve to lose, and it was great to see their humiliating defeat, and I'm sure there is forthcoming songs from Afro Man to commemorate this victory. For the First Amendment and for just good, decent Americans standing up for their rights against abusive cops and authorities.
Sheriff, he's hungry and he's big as hell. He was sniffing for weed, then he smelled another smell. What was that? Mama's lemon pound cake.
Okay, I don't want to share. I don't know if that's the original. Let me make sure that that's the original before I share the link. That is, okay, that looks like the original. So everybody's going to go, let me give this to you. So you can all put this on blast. Support Afro Man's work. Mama's Lemon Pound Cake. Where did it go? It's coming from a different link. I'm going to find the original, but it's Afro Man. Let me see if he's on Twitter. It drives me nuts when people post the entire song on their Twitter feed. Here it is. Here it is, everybody. And I'll share it, and you can go support the work that Afro Man does. The Hungry Hustlin' American Dream 2024 presidential candidate. And
I want to remind everybody that how the verdict comes out isn't something of public comment. So if you have an emotional attachment to the verdict, don't express it. Wait till you get out of the building before you let your emotions out. In all circumstances, the jury finds in favor of the defendant. No plaintiff verdict prevailed.
That's a way of saying you got your ass handed to you. Here's the link to Afro Man. Okay, so that's hilarious. And it's just a shame. They get immunity. They drag... Who paid for their legal fees, Robert? Like, they have government funded. None of those cops paid for their own attorneys. I presume.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether they did or they didn't. But it was laughably absurd. The abusers sue the person that they abused for making fun of them for abusing them. It's like you can't make this up. And it's Afro Man, a funny guy, a great personality, bigger than life. So it's literally a white pill and a black rapper.
All right. What else? It's
another big win. The little street preacher down in Mississippi fighting the local authorities. John Mellencamp and others said, I fought the man and the man won. Well, if you're Afro Man, you can fight the man and you win. And here, this little street preacher taking on the rogue actors in the local Mississippi jurisdiction who didn't want him preaching where they didn't want him preaching. They wanted to stick him over in the little protest quarter. This is a case we talked about all the way from the time it was filed.
And you'll flesh out the nuances of the legality of why this is a success. But basically what happened is this preacher was preaching in front of public venues. Was it a football? I want to say a football stadium. Where was he preaching? It was
like a venue where you could do a whole bunch of different events.
So he's preaching in public, and they passed some sort of ordinance which basically relegated his street preaching to a cordoned off section for protesting and free speech, which he found to be ineffective to reaching the people. He would be there with a bullhorn preaching his word of God. They pass a specific ordinance that restricts his ability to do it wherever and relegates him to a tiny little corner. He gets charged and pleads no contest under this statute. Doesn't challenge it, doesn't appeal it. It's a conviction, or he pleaded guilty and he got a literal slap on the wrist, or didn't go to jail. But then he later on challenges the constitutionality of that provision of law, and they try to dismiss the claim on the basis that he cannot challenge a law under which he was found guilty because it would have the effect of basically vacating or nullifying his conviction. And because he didn't challenge it at the time, I guess he never gets to challenge the law under which he was convicted. And there's some precedent that they were invoking to justify that. But basically, SCOTUS unanimously says no. What was it? Heck? What was the
Heck.
Heck. And so basically they said the restriction in Heck was to circumvent a conviction and not challenge the law in the absence of challenging the conviction. He said, I'm not challenging my conviction. It's done and it'll stand. But I'm now challenging the constitutionality of this law. And the state was arguing that it's prohibited under Heck because it's circumventing the conviction. And the SCOTUS said Heck did not prohibit subsequent challenging of the constitutionality of the law without challenging the conviction under that law. Did I get that roughly good?
Exactly. It was a complete misapplication of heck, which I've always had problems with heck anyway. But a lot of these cases were decided as appellate procedures where they wanted you to go through the state court process rather than disguise a state appeal as a federal civil rights challenge. And what happened is lower courts abused those principles to basically block civil rights challenges by force-feeding cases into the state criminal process. So this happened, and also variations of it happened in the Rooker-Feldman doctrine that some of us led a long-standing effort to scrap and finally got the Supreme Court to scrap it about a decade ago. But it was being constantly used to shield corrupt state administrative officials and state judges especially from civil rights challenges. Here, the fact he'd been previously convicted of it gave him standing to sue because he could say, I know this law will be used against me because it's been used against me before. So I'm at imminent risk of this being violating my First Amendment rights because it's happened to me before. He wasn't challenging the prior conviction. In the courts, the Fifth Circuit, ridiculously, because so often they see civil rights and they just rule for the government, see the badge, bow to the badge. That kind of mindset among some of the so-called conservative jurists on that court. And then the liberals are almost all authoritarians these days anyway. So they were eager to force feed this guy to not being able to exercise his core First Amendment rights right before where it's most consequential. And so the Supreme Court, to its credit, unanimously said it's obvious that this, in fact, does not violate the heck principle. He has an absolute right to challenge a law. The fact he'd previously been convicted of it isn't a bar. It's actually grounds for him to sue. Because he's not challenging his conviction. He's not trying to disguise a criminal appeal as a civil rights case. It's completely separate from that and distinct from that. The absolute right decision. And, credit to this little street preacher who was willing to challenge this all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States to protect all the rest of us.
No, and I understood that, the rationale is, well, you were convicted under the law. You didn't challenge the constitutionality then, so you challenged the constitutionality later so as to basically override your conviction, which was not what he was doing. He said, I'll live with it. I'll take that because it gives me standing. Much like actually Jeff Evely up in Canada. Remember the guy who walked into the forest and got the big ass fine? He had his arguments before the Supreme Court. I think it's for, I want to say certiorari, basically for leave to appeal. And he needed the ticket in order to have the standing to contest the law without, in this case, they're going to try to overturn the ticket, but it was contesting it specifically for that purpose. In this particular case, he got the ticket, was never challenging it. How long have I had that hair there for, Robert? No, that's very embarrassing.
No idea.
And 9-0 unanimous that he get. Well, actually, hold on. Did they overturn it or did they give him standing to do it? I forget now.
They gave him standing to sue, so that it didn't provide a block, and they made it clear he had the right to sue. So he's going to win on that suit, is my prediction.
Yeah.
So congratulations to him. Now let's hope tomorrow, when they're holding oral argument, that this is another win, because they're going to be deciding, does election day mean election day, or does it mean election weeks?
Robert, well, we got to head over to Rumble. We got to head over to Locals for our after party.
I figure we'll wrap up with the mail-in ballot case. But over in the after party, Rumble Premium, and on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Someone asked about Operation Gladio. You can find a hush-hush about Operation Gladio. Going to have a hush-hush this week on who it was that tricked the president into believing this war would have a different outcome very quickly. And it doesn't involve the Israel lobby. It involves someone else, someone particular. And we'll get to that in a hush-hush forthcoming this week. But over the after party, we'll cover California trying to allow racial preferences to go back into force by amending their state constitution in a deceptive manner. Jerome Powell wants to stay at the Fed for as long as he feels like it. The Disney, caught with an antitrust violation, has to write a big fat check, but they should be sued by the Justice Department, but they're not. Nextar, also just got sued by a bunch of states in a case that Trump himself said should have been brought, but now his Justice Antitrust Division is not. But we'll cover that. And then favorite little bonus case for the after party, a court clerk who outs all the corruption of the chief judge of the local county, involving all kinds of shenanigans. So you get to see a rare sneak peek at how the judicial branch really operates.
believe the dog may have done something. Let me just look back and say, now, but who do we go raid? I'm going to see Armin's Gold might be, I don't know if people want gaming. I don't know if Armin's Gold is gaming. Do we have, let's see what we got here. I know some that would be less well received than others. Is Owen Schroyer alive? Not live. Is he live now? He is not live. Badlands. Let me see. Badlands looks like they might be up. Badlands Media, and they're live. Okay, we're going to go no trees in podcast because I don't think people are going to be too into gaming. We're going to go raid that. And if you're not coming over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com or sticking around for the Rumble Premium After Party, I'll see you tomorrow. Robert, what do you have coming up this week?
We will cover the mail-in ballot case before we hop over there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay, let's do that. Sorry, my bad. Okay, do the mail-in ballot. The mail-in ballot. No, you're going to have to cover it.
This is the Election Day case from Mississippi. In other words, this is when they are taking and accepting mail-in ballots after Election Day. And they're arguing that even though constitutionally you're required to hold elections, I see some people talking about maybe the president can disband elections or suspend elections or delay elections. No, constitutionally, they have to be held within a certain time frame every time. So that's a constitutional requirement that can't be overridden by anybody. But Congress determines what day that is held. They're constitutionally obligated to be within this time frame, like 2 years for House elections and a rotating cycle of Senate elections, 4 years for presidential elections. But Congress has, since 1845, set Election Day to be a day. And it was always in fact, why did it come about? It came about because different states were holding elections on different days. And they said this is a mess and undermines the whole point of federal elections, especially. For state elections, who cares? Local elections, who cares? But when you got one state votes this day and another state on federal elections, that's a problem. So they said, no, it's got to be this day and this day only. But what has happened since COVID is that various states have said, including Mississippi, have said, nah, Election Day means if you mail your ballot and it's simply postmarked that day, then that counts. Even though who knows whether it gets postmarked when you send it the day after. Mm-hmm. Who knows if it just magically shows up at 4 a.m. like they did in 2020 in ways that are still unexplained in many contexts. Harmeet Dillon would love to get on that, but she's too busy making sure no Israelis are made fun of at Harvard. But they're going to hear the oral argument on Monday on whether or not Election Day means the ballot itself has to be received on that day, because that's how it was historically understood and defined. So we'll see if the Supreme Court will step up to the plate and rule this way in an originalist way, or if they will be wusses again on election reform. But this could be a substantial one, because a key mechanism of election fornication is allowing these ballots to just magically sprinkle in after elections.
It's so stupid because how long? For how long after the election should they tolerate this? A day, a week?
In California, it goes months. Months.
I mean, it makes no sense. It's unfortunate. Arrived by Election Day. You want to vote by mail, you have to abide by certain mail-it priority if you have to. Okay, so now we're going to talk for a bit more. I'm just going to confirm the raid to Badlands Media. Yep. Go there. Robert, what do you have coming up this week?
So on Wednesday, for our sidebar, we've got another guest, Dr. Parsi. He has a very unique background. So he'll be talking about, he has a unique Iranian perspective on the Iranian conflict, because his father managed to be persecuted by both the Shah and the Ayatollah. So, I mean, that's what led him to his family to leave. So he studied this topic as much as any. He's involved with the Iranian American Association here in the United States, co-founder of Responsible Statecraft, a geopolitical realist publication from the Quincy Institute. Very knowledgeable about Iran and things related and connected to it, not only from his family history, but from long-standing decades of study. So he will be on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, on a special edition sidebar. Otherwise, we'll have a bourbon on Tuesday and have a bourbon on Thursday, and maybe on Monday. There might be something else on Monday, not sure yet. And we'll have a hush-hush this week at vivabarneslaw.locals.com on who is the culprit that tricked Trump into the Iran war. Maybe a bit of a surprise, someone that's a little bit off the radar screen, unless you pay detailed attention as to why Trump thought this would be a quick Delcy Rodriguez type operation. We'll get into that in a little hush-hush, but that's all at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
So let's do this before. I think we've now. Oh, by the way, also, if anyone is into gaming, I don't want to force gaming on our crowd. Armand's Gold is doing some gaming on the front page. Hold on a second here. Here's the link to Armand's Gold. He recently joined Rumble, and I know that he does some political commentary, but based on what I'm looking at right now, he's doing gaming review. And I mean, for someone who enjoys opening and unboxing baseball cards, I won't judge other people's distracting, what they take pleasure in as a distraction from the black pilling of the world. But go check that out. I will be live. So we're live all week. I mean, I'll be 3:00 daily. I'm going to see if I can get a link and restream or live commentate the hearing tomorrow, because I'm going to listen to it one way or the other. Spring break is over. Technically on Tuesday, the girls still have 1 day off, but I'm back in my office in studio and going to get back to do a few car vlogs. So what was I about to do now? Yeah, so now we're going to go over to Rumble Premium and Locals. If you're not coming, thank you for being here, Rumble. CommieTube, thank you all for being here as well. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And X, bye-bye. We're going over for the after party. Peace out, everybody. Update stream